And Dana Bash, a host at CNN, she was interviewing Pramila Jayapal, the Democrat from Washington, and she's a progressive Democrat. And Dana was asking her, how do you, what do you think of the sexual violence against the Israeli women? Here's her response. Listen to this.
I've condemned what Hamas has done. I've condemned all of the actions. Absolutely. The rape, of course. Frankly, morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific, and I think that rape is horrific, sexual assault is horrific. I think that it happens in war situations. Terrorist organizations like Hamas obviously are using these as tools. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians. 15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think
women.
I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppression.
I mean, a lot of kudos to Dana Bash. I mean, there's some people at her network that haven't been as forceful. There's some people at other networks that haven't been forceful. And she's the chair of the progressive, the Congresswoman, the Progressive Caucus. The question is, and I want people to really think about this. For months now, for years actually, we've heard about women's rights. We've heard about equal justice. We've heard about treating people by the content of that. We've seen marches in the streets. And there is an entire campaign of hate toward Jewish people. And the same outrage, the same condemnation is not being projected. So the question we must ask ourselves, why is it? There's only one thing that is different. It is that they're Jewish. And I think it was great of Dana Bash to press the Congresswoman, stay focused here. I keep telling people, I'm so sick of this both side thing, Steve, because there's not both sides. The comparison to say, okay, Hamas has did this and the Israelis responding to the war crimes of Hamas, that should be the focus of all people here.
You know, and a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. House of Representatives, one of the first things the new speaker did was he introduced a resolution condemning Hamas. She did not vote for it. She voted present instead. What happened on October 7th, you know, it redefines evil. And, you know, we know that people were murdered, and we know that women were raped after they were murdered, which is just so disgusting. But here's the thing. The raping of Israeli women hostages continues to this day. And so it was a great question that Dana put to her. And what does she do? She does the both sidesism where it's like, okay, well, of course, it's terrible, and I've denounced it. She hadn't really denounced that vocally. Instead, rather than denouncing Hamas, she's talking about the Palestinian people. You've got to denounce Hamas, period, because that is a source of evil. And that is what Israel is working to do, to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth.
Yes, it's a terrorist organization, and what they did to those women and those children, you're right.
Still doing it.
Evil, still doing it. You're right.
Well, we have to be clear also, Ainsley. We still have people that
Talk about AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It was incorporated in 1963. For 10 years prior to that, it was known as the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs. AIPAC calls itself America's pro-Israel lobby, and according to its website, it has over 3 million members across the country in regional chapters working to, quote, expand and strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship, end quote. You may know AIPAC as being one of the biggest and most recognizable donors to many of the members of Congress in your state. But contributing to campaigns is a relatively new function of the organization. Before 2021, AIPAC did not endorse candidates nor give political contributions. Its focus was on lobbying elected officials, not actually electing officials. But in a dramatic shift in policy, AIPAC began directly funding candidates and spending big on races in 2021. AIPAC Political Action Committee, AIPAC-PAC, filed something called a Statement of Organization with the FEC just in time for the 2022 election cycle, where it spent $50 million, including both direct contributions to candidates and outside spending like TV advertisements. According to AIPAC, it donated money to 365 candidates from both parties, including every single member of both Democratic and Republican leadership in Congress. 109 Republicans who voted against the certification of the 2020 presidential election in America received campaign contributions from AIPAC. All in all, AIPAC gave money to 342 members of the 118th Congress. The 2022 elections were the most expensive midterms in American history, with a total cost of $8.9 billion spent. Now, last year, AIPAC ranked 15th in total expenditure by a political action committee, according to data collected by Open Secrets. But take a look at the other funders that AIPAC is competing against for that title. Act Blue and Win Red. They are Democratic and Republican Party machines. Save America is Donald Trump's money-raising operation. The Conservative Club for Growth, Emily's List, focuses on electing Democratic women to office. All of the PACs on this list are massively domestic-focused ideological machines. AIPAC is the only organization in the top 20 whose interests are focused entirely on America's relationship to a foreign government. Now, let's take a look at who benefits from AIPAC's largesse. Here are the top 20 recipients in Congress, the House and the Senate, of AIPAC money in the 2022 midterm cycle, according to Open Secrets. They're members of both parties. They come from every corner of the country with varying levels of experience in Congress. The Democrat Glenn Ivey of Maryland tops the list. He beat out fellow Democrat Donna Edwards in Maryland's House primary after AIPAC poured millions into pro-Ivey advertisements and mailers. Edwards was running for a second stint in Congress after serving during the Obama administration, where she voted present, not even a no, on a number of pro-Israel resolutions. So the money poured in against her. Not even an endorsement from Nancy Pelosi could save her. Michigan Democrat Haley Stevens unseated Democratic Representative Andy Levin. Here's what Levin had to say about that.
I'm really Jewish, but AIPAC can't stand the idea that I am the clearest, strongest Jewish voice in Congress, standing for a simple proposition that there's no way to have a secure democratic homeland for the Jewish people unless we achieve the political and human rights of the Palestinian people.
AIPAC spent $4 million against Levin. He lost by 20 points. When Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American in Congress, was censured by the House in early November over what some lawmakers called her rhetoric around the Israeli-Hamas war, 22 Democrats joined Republicans in that censure vote. 18 of those Democrats received campaign funds from AIPAC in 2022, totaling more than $1.1 million. By the way, for these 6 of them, AIPAC was their top contributor. A growing list of progressive lawmakers who are vocal in their criticism of the government of Israel and its policies and their support for Palestinian self-determination have
this. So Muslim leaders in several swing states, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Minnesota, Nevada, Pennsylvania, they have launched this campaign. It's called Abandon Biden. Here are some of them. They said that they are not going to vote for President Biden in this election cycle, even though they voted for him in the past. Here they are in Dearborn, Michigan over the weekend. Listen to what they're saying.
I'm here to tell you, Mr. Biden, that on behalf of the Michigan Muslim community, we will not be voting for you either in the primary or in the general election, simply by not calling for a ceasefire.
Families and children are being wiped out with our own tax dollars.
We will change the vote, we will swing it, and we won't be standing with you this upcoming election. Thank you.
So how serious of a problem do you think this is for President Biden? And do you think that their complaints could change his stance on the war in Israel?
Probably not, because he can't change Israel's stance on the war in Israel. He and Anthony Blinken can say whatever they want. I just thought of something. Those Muslim leaders, will they be in the fundraisers in Hollywood with Katzenberg and all the other rich Jews who give to the Democrats?
Yeah.
Also,
there's a real divide.
Muslims are about 1.2 million or 1.2% of the population. Jews are about 2.5% and growing as a percentage of the American population. So where do you think the vote strategy is going to go when you look at voting totals? They're going to go primarily to Jewish. So Biden can't change what they need to do. Biden can't change Bibi's mind. They have to defend themselves. And the bluster doesn't carry over. Plus, you mentioned memory at some point. They're going to forget by next year. A lot of the voters will forget, and they'll come home and vote for Democrats, and that's what we should be concerned about. To the Jews out there across America, whether you're pro-Israel, anti-Biden, whatever you are, it's a simple question. You're being attacked around the world. Who do you trust to be there for you from a policy perspective?
And it's just terrible to think of vote strategy when it comes to war and lives and what's right and wrong and moral, but that is the reality of American politics these days.
It's the harsh reality.
Yeah, it certainly is. David.
Welcome to a Monday edition of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
Welcome back, my friends and family. What's popping? What's popping? Welcome to RBN Monday. It's great to be back. Great to be back. We got a lot of great things to cover. I love the video selection today. Your video selection today hit exactly what I wanted to cover today, because I was going to get on the Jayapal video here very soon. But there's been a lot of fucking cope and anger from liberals regarding Muslim Americans doing what the Black community should have did a very long time ago, where Muslim Americans saw the state violence being committed on the Palestinians, and they told white liberals to take their lesser to evil ideology and shove it. Meanwhile, we have Black people that's still on the plantation, the party that built in Cop City, the party that was in charge in the decline of our wealth, the people who are in charge of our cities, destroying our environment. We still continue to vote for the Democratic Party, despite all their crimes, despite the fact that Jim Crow Joe is one of the most anti-Black politicians in the modern era. You still see Black people voting for him. And now, after this Palestinian thing, there's Muslim Americans who should have woke up, considering that Biden, one of the chief architects on the destruction in the Middle East, on the war on terror. But now they see this current event and they're rallying. It's not like it's bad for Democrats because it's not apathy. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, we're done with politics. That's not what they're doing, fam. They are organizing to get people to vote against Biden. That's different. That's a threat. And now you see liberals posting fantasies of Muslim people being deported, and they saying, oh, we can't wait to see what happens. They were in shambles. And this is why I said earlier last week, I passed you, CJ, I know you probably want to chime in. The Republicans are working hand in hand with Democrats to prevent the Democrat from completely sinking. So after Muslim Americans started pledging to lead the Democratic Party, then all of a sudden you got Republicans saying, we're going to deport all the Muslims. We're going to deport the Palestinians. They're like, nigga, we're trying to give you something. But Muslims, many of them being based, right? They see what the Republicans are doing. They're not falling for it. They're like, we don't give a fuck what the consequences is. Nothing the lesser two evils than genocide, fam. But CJ, feel free to chime in. There are a lot of
I mean, from their perspective, like what's the lesser evil for them? Like, is it Trump? Like, what I like about what's happening with this abandoned Biden movement that's beginning is that they're not saying we're going to Trump. And it feels like they're saying we are post-duopoly, Nick. What we've been saying, we tapped this name over a year ago. It was like, We need something that distincts us from the regular people who try to co-opt our language and sound like us, but they're not going to co-opt stuff, phrases like defund the police, phrases like from the river to the sea, phrases like this one. You get what I'm saying? So I just absolutely love this. I found out about this from your tweet, actually, so I know we're gonna get to it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm gonna get right to it since we on the roll on this.
Yeah. I just found that video, by the way, where they're covering it, because you can't find any coverage. Of course, to get any honest coverage on this, you have to go to Fox. Any of this honest coverage about the reaction to the Palestinian struggle and Biden, you got to go to Fox. So this is where I go. I go to Fox. Let me see what's happening. They're talking about Palestine, but go ahead, Nick.
I have something for your ass, CJ, because they brought on Keith Ellison on MSNBC, who's apparently a Muslim, right? So you know how the black PMCs who've been extremely successful as sheep herding people into our oppressive Democratic Party, correct? Mm-hmm. You have PMC Muslims that's loyal to the Democratic Party that got the message, CJ, to work overtime on this shit. So that's why I want to roll into this. I'm gonna get don't worry. I'm gonna circle back to the Morning Joe segment with Jaya Paul.
This is part of all of it. This is part. I knew this was going to be the segment. I didn't even talk to you. It's so funny, Nick. Just saying. Nick and I did not talk at all. At all. I just said, bro, if you joining, we starting at 1. That's it.
Yeah.
You join. I picked the right clips because I already knew, man. This is
all your clips was perfect.
That we're gonna be talking about. I already know, but go ahead, sir.
Yeah, me and CJ is on the same page, man. We're on the same page. I'm gonna get right to it because I already had a segment play on this. You had a video that ran right into it. About we're gonna get right into it.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
Like this part not too important. I just find it funny because I can find replies all day with people melting down on this because all the big news media was reporting on this. I just found one, for example. This Politico on Twitter saying swing state Muslim leaders launch campaign to abandon Biden. And in the comments, you will see 1,800 liberals having a fucking meltdown.
It is glorious. That's why I put that in the title. This is so glorious to see. Go ahead.
They are having a hard time dealing with this news because this means certain defeat for Biden. You know what I mean? I tell you guys, I have a hard time predicting electoral politics, but we're talking about swing states, and by the numbers that Democrats need to win, those people are rallying people to stop not to vote for Biden. This is the death blow. There's not going to be any other issue. CJ, I see they try. They try to bring in the other issue that, people talking about inflation over here. No, nigga, this is the thing that's going to decide the election. I saw MSNBC. They were like,
trying so hard.
Biden, you were really concerned about Biden. Hey, nigga, no one's talking about that anymore. No one's talking about that anymore.
It's so funny to see the cope.
So they are panicking. I'll just read a few because once again, this part not too important, but it's just funny to me. You can see this is the general response. Thousands of likes on this one. Yes, they should vote for the person who will denaturalize and deport them. Absolutely brilliant idea. Now, the reply I sent to this from me and my based ass brothers and sisters, is that they rather have a president that deport a motherfucker than someone committing genocide. Which one would you rather have, CJ? I don't know. This is an obvious question. For one, I don't believe Trump is going to do it because Trump said a lot of crazy shit in the first term that he did not do. A lot of the reasons why, because he was met with constitutional restraints on his power. So isn't it funny how liberals are like, man, Biden, why you got so mad at Biden for not doing anything on healthcare, on infrastructure, on this and that? You got to know Biden not that powerful. Biden can't do that much, CJ. There's nothing he can do. His hands are tied. But then the Republican president, oh my God, he's going to destroy the country. He's going to destroy the democracy. And they all powerful. Who believes this anymore?
Yeah.
So for one, I don't believe he's going to do it. And secondly, Muslims like, bro, the deportations is way better than us accepting dehumanization. We have Biden that is repeating the most unhinged Likud propaganda that the Gaza health ministry is ran by Hamas and that their numbers are lies and fakes. Like Glenn Greenwald said it best. Like people don't understand how fucking atrocious that is.
That was the beginning of the end. As far as the Muslim community, now this is just me on the outside looking in. Of course, they can speak for themselves, their community, and if it's something different, please, I would love to know. But I feel like this is the beginning stages. I should say that way. It's the beginning stages, that comment where I don't believe it. Do you notice, Nick? They say that when Israel brings that up, but they keep using the number. all of the cable news networks are using the ministry. So it's funny how they're able to use it as a number in the segment, and then they say, "Oh, we can't believe it," when we try to say this is genocide. It's very talking out of both sides of their mouths. But
yeah, I want to get something to repeat a point on what you said earlier, and there's someone who's gonna explain it for us who have a brilliant post on this. You guys see what the liberals are doing? Let me read this again. I didn't emphasize it the first time I read. Yes, they should absolutely vote for the person who denaturalized. Where did they say anything about voting for Trump? You guys see how they immediately imply that these people are secret Trump supporters? And look, here's another one. Who are they going to vote for? Trump? You guys see? That's all the liberals have. We're going to vote for Trump. We already seen Trump. We've seen Trump for 4 years. We got Biden for 3 years. And guess who funded and escalated genocide the likes we've never seen before out of the two? Now we know that Trump's going to continue it, and they know this too. But they said, why would we vote for someone who will continue a policy that Donald Trump would? Because liberals would say, well, you guys don't want to vote for Biden. You know that Donald Trump would do the genocide too. Yes, that's the point. Why would we vote for someone who had the same policies as Trump? Meanwhile, I'll move on to this point. You guys see there are a lot of liberal cope in general on this. I'm going to read an explanation. You guys see this is a white liberal here. They should be directing their energies elsewhere. What is more valuable in directing your energy than opposing genocide, CJ? I really wish I understood that. What's more important than that?
Nothing I can see.
Look, now, this is 2,000. There are about almost 2,000 replies here. I don't want to spend too much time reading them, but this kind of sums it up in a nutshell.
Put that.
This is a Jacobin writer, believe it or not. He said lots of Democrats in the replies here openly admitting that they hate Muslims because of their religion. I saw one reply where it was like, of course they're not thinking it through. They're religious fundamentalists. Just another example how liberals and progressives hate the people they claim they fight for, right? That's how they really feel. Now, this is someone who I'm not saying they speak for the entirety of the Muslim community, but I do think this is a very well-written and thought-out post that I think does a good job summing the movement up in general. Not everyone, right? Mm-hmm. We know that. But this is a good tweet. Let me read it. Let me clarify something for those curious about why Muslims are supporting the Biden campaign. And if you're not on Twitter, if you're offline, the Biden hashtag was trending all day yesterday with tens of thousands of tweets on it. It was a coordinated campaign. And then, like, I saw Mark Kimberly, our great friend. She posted, like, I already banned Biden, but I'm just posting it just to show solidarity because a lot of people jumped on after a while, which was the point. So now liberals were freaking out because you had this trending hashtag with tens of thousands of tweets trending all day. Now, he says here, this has nothing to do with Trump. Despite what the liberal just said, this has nothing to do with Trump. This is about Biden's tacit approval of killing more than 6,000 children in Gaza. The number is higher now. This is about not voting for the man who didn't say anything about 5 premature babies being forcibly removed from incubators at gunpoint and then being left unattended to starve to death over 3 weeks. This is about basic human dignity. Liberals don't want us to have any dignity, my Muslim brothers and sisters, my black brothers and sisters, because it has nothing to do with Trump. There's a point where your dignity is on the line. You're gonna vote for someone who fucking wrote the crime bill? Now I'm speaking for myself here. You're gonna vote for someone who destroyed the Middle East, who sponsored wars in Africa, who created the epidemic of civil asset forfeiture that destroyed our wealth? Black people, do you have any self-respect? And that's what a lot of Muslims will say. At this point, it's about self-respect more than anything. Even above political strategy. At what point is your honor on the line? Will you allow your oppressor to just spit in your face? Yeah, we kill your babies in incubators. Yeah, we kill your children. You're going to vote for us anyway because we got all the power in the situation. Something that our community has done for decades. They yielded their power because they're nihilists. They will be into submission. So when I see these Muslim Americans freeing themselves from the Democratic plantation of genocide, it makes me nothing but happy for them and show nothing but solidarity. And you know that during the coverage of this, these scumbag liberals are more worried about how this will impact the Democratic Party, CJ.
Right.
Than they are, instead of demanding Democrats listen to what they're saying, instead of demanding Democrats to listen and respect human rights, instead of demanding their respective leaders get the issue correct, they're not doing that. They're saying, how can we message the community differently that will trick them into supporting our community? And that will keep Ellison Century says. I don't want to spoil it. That's why I'm going to show you guys here very soon.
Wow.
It's like, we got, everyone in my hood is disappointed. We mad. And it's kind of unacceptable what you guys are doing. But here, I got something for you guys. All I got to do is just lie to them a little bit. You know what I mean? If you lie to them a little bit, we trick them. Then we can get them support Democrats. Then we can work on that. I'm like, bro, people think he sounds cool, but he's saying the most sellout shit possible. I wasn't planning on covering it. I was listening in the background. I was like, bro, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable shit here. So you have Muslim POC members working overtime to undermine what this person right here is saying. I'm getting big shout out to them. You know, I gotta give them a follow back. This is a great tweet. I'm gonna read from here. I keep interrupting. I'm gonna finish all the way before I'll shut up. This has nothing to do with Trump. This is about Biden's tactical approval of killing more than 6,000 children in Gaza. This is about the not voting for a man who didn't say anything about the 5 premature babies being forcibly removed from their incubators at gunpoint and being left unattended to starve for death over 3 weeks. This is about basic human dignity. You cannot force people to vote for someone who doesn't blink when children that look like ours are being incinerated with white phosphorus or buried alive beneath rubble. If you think any amount of complaining about the orange man or what about deportation will force us to vote for Biden, you are mistaken. We are afraid to stand in front of Allah and have our pure souls of infant testify against us on the day of judgment. I'm not even religious, but that shit gave me chills. They're saying we're more afraid to stand in front of Allah and have our soul judged because they didn't do anything. That's essentially what he's saying. This isn't about supporting Trump. It's about not supporting Biden. And if that bothers you, then you need to take it up with your elected officials and and their policies, not us. So if you have problems with Muslims not voting for your party, you should take it up with the leaders who are turning their back on people you consider yourself to be in community with, which they are not, right? But they pretend to be in community with Muslims, right? Liberals pretend they care about Muslims. So if you care about community, wouldn't you call out the politicians that betray them? They're not doing that. In fact, they try to do everything they can to spin the situation to trick Muslims into voting for their oppressors. The same way that Vosh, Emma Vigeland, TYT did to me directly, where they said that black people had to vote for their oppressors, and they trying to do mental jiu-jitsu to trick me into voting for my oppressors. Yeah. Vosh and his audience was super mad because they couldn't do it. You know what I mean? That's what.
And they trick you by saying, yeah, I'm teamed up with an oppressor, but the other oppressor will be worse than me. It is such a thing that is so specific, Nick, to the United States and other imperialist Western nations. This is a thing, to me, that is a larger sort of conflict of ideology in the United States, because it is, we have to understand, white supremacy is ingrained in thought processes, ingrained in our schooling and such everything. So even if black and brown bodies are dying, those are less important. You vote for the white guy in office. You see, it's such a ingrained thing and they're offended, Nick, if you don't do that. That lets you, it's such a racist thing. I get such a racist vibe from that sort of thinking. But go ahead.
Bro, if you look on Twitter and just Google Muslim Americans and Biden, just Google the 3 words. I might do it just for fun here so you guys see the replies. There are a ton of liberal blue check just fucking melting down. Don't you guys know what this means? Oh my God, after everything I did standing for you guys are sacrificing the country. They are fucking furious. They're furious. Actually, I'll see if I can dig up, but it's not that important. But this
it'd be like the white handyman that was on the plantation that knew a couple of slaves. After all the food I didn't brought for you overnight, you getting mad and you burning down this damn plantation? Yeah, motherfucker, I'm burning it down. It is a complete lack of understanding, Nick, of the person's state of affairs that's happening while they're being oppressed. They really don't understand. This is why they're like, what do you mean? You're not going to vote for Biden? Yeah. Do you see Trump? Motherfucker, do you see my kids dying? Like, it's really, they don't get it, Nick. It's like a disconnect that only happens in Western countries, I would say. But go ahead.
Bro, look at this one. I just found this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but look at this. And those Muslim Americans think that sinking Biden will be better for their Palestine and Trump. Always putting emotions above interest. Sounds about right. That's why Palestine looks like this today. Jesus Christ. Bro, Jesus Christ, bro.
These are the same. These just switch out the Palestinian genocide struggle and switch in what happened here on this soil to black people. These are the same people will be saying this same shit, Nick, about us. You want to throw it all away just to end slavery for Nick and CJ over there? That's literally what they would be saying.
Yep. So that guy went full Django Unchained there. So there's liberals there. That's essentially him calling Muslims, and a lot of liberals repeated talking point that Muslims are emotional animals who can't make intelligent and rational decisions. Despite the fact that I show you guys a post of them doing exactly that. Do you think they don't know the pros and cons? But the pros of fighting for their dignity in front of Allah outweighs your fucking Trump derangement syndrome, you scumbag white liberals. And that's just one I found really within a few seconds. The entire liberal social media have been melting down about this. So I'm gonna show you guys this. This is MSNBC.
Oh Lord,
doing their best to cover this. And they bring on Keith Ellison. Apparently Keith Ellison Muslim. I learned that when I did research on this segment. I had no idea, but I guess he is. He's part of the Muslim community. So they bring his ass on. They were like, nigga, let's find the most progressive sounding Muslim Democrat we can to get these motherfuckers back in line. So I'm gonna I'll let the segment play because the good part get a little bit later, but I think a lot of the segment is worth talking about. So I'm gonna let it play from here, and then feel free to chime in if you want.
Week-long humanitarian IDF has
look at the title of the video. Biden navigates division over Israel-Hamas war. Good luck with that. Good luck politically juggling the ramifications of supporting a genocide. Let's continue.
Instated its missile attacks on southern Gaza. The IDF says more than 400 targets across the Gaza Strip have been hit. And according to the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza, at least 200 Palestinians have been killed since the fighting resumed.
The Hamas-ran health. I followed this even before I became like a political commentator 3 years ago. I followed this way longer than that. You know what I mean? There's one thing that radicalized me. CJ, I've never heard them say this language until now. Like when talking about Palestinian deaths. I never heard this term before. The Hamas-ran health ministry. This is a newly invented term, and everyone who does it is doing propaganda on behalf of the Israeli government. Human rights organizations, the UN, NATO, Western institutions have quoted the Gaza health ministry for years. You guys know that? For years. Exactly. No one ever questioned the Gaza health ministry until now. Now, all of a sudden, it's the Hamas-ran Gaza health ministry. Never before. And it's tricks people who don't follow this now. The people who've been following this recently, you don't know that. But people like me, Max, Dan Cohen, Abby Martin, and quite a few others who've been following this for a long time. This is new shit. I never fucking heard that before. And now it's like repeated as fact everywhere. But let me continue. And by the way, let me update their numbers. You had 700 Palestinians that died within 24 hours. 700 in 24 hours. So
how many were Hamas?
In your morning Joe segment and in the Fox News segment, and pretty much all the segments, they talk about how it's so important for Israel to destroy and eliminate Hamas. If you have a civilian death rate around 98%, where you killing 98% of people who you kill are not Hamas, how can anyone credibly say they're at war with Hamas? CJ, imagine how much we would struggle if their death rate, they had like a 75%. 75% of their kills was Hamas. They're like, yeah, man, come on, man. 25%, man, that's the cost of war. Our stance get a little bit weaker. And that on that particular, I can argue against that, but on that particular front, right? But it's 98% at least, especially since the ceasefire lifted. And the people still repeating the bullshit that Israel's at war with Hamas. As they bombing Lebanon, as they bombing Syria, as they attacking the West Bank, areas where Hamas have no fucking control. But people still repeat it. People still repeat this bullshit. Anyone who claims this have no credibility whatsoever. Here's my source, because I'm not one of the people that insult your intelligence to say shit. More than 700 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza Strip during the last 24 hours. So their numbers need to be updated. And this is a great tweet, important point. Biden asked Israel to kill fewer civilians, CJ. You want to know how Israel responded? By killing more of them. So they play the dead. They know exactly what they're doing. But let's continue. And one more thing I'm gonna say on, you guys see, and everyone been freaking out on Twitter over the last 2 days because the ceasefire ended, right? What did we tell you guys at RBN 2 weeks ago? You know how RBN is always in front of shit? People are like, ceasefire now, ceasefire now, ceasefire now. Then they got a 3-day humanitarian pause, and they're like, yes, we did it. We did it. We was like, nigga, everyone said a celebration. Remember, everyone still celebrating, and it was like, this is why we support Biden, because we knew that Biden's gonna get it done. We knew he was actually had a long-term plan for the Palestinians. That's what progressives was tweeting. Meanwhile, the whole time I ain't say, I'm literally looking in disgust at everybody, even people who get this issue right, celebrating. I understand the general instinct where less lives are gonna die for a few days, so I'm not mad at them. I don't want you guys to don't misunderstand. I'm not mad at them,
right?
I understand the instinct, but it was absurd because Israel made it clear, the United States made it clear that once this shit ends, they're going to continue the bombing. So I never at any point celebrated the fucking pause because I'm like, the shit's not over. So they done, so they get you get little supplies, you get some band-aids on your wounds, and then they're going to continue. Yeah, progressives and progressive leaders that was like pretending this was it, we won. They had like the bow at the end of the storyline, and in the Palestinian community network was like, you got the people out of their minds. The ceasefire should not even be our ask. It's something that you do as a band-aid. The ask is to end occupation, end all U.S. support for Israel, sanction Israel, destroy Israel as a state. That should have always been our ask. You know why it wasn't? Because people to electoral politics, CJ, because they know that no Democrat will ever call for lifting the occupation. So what do people do? They call for the furthest left thing that people in Congress will advocate for. So they're like, let's go for ceasefire. You guys see how that works? You guys see how electoral politics is a bane of the existence of liberation movements? Because now liberals assume anyone who go further than ceasefire is unreasonable because that's the confines they're working with, the confines that are limited by Congress. I apologize for going on that rant. It wasn't planned, but let me continue this segment. I want to get that off my chest, but let's continue.
The continued war is putting a strain on relations here in the United States between the Biden administration and the Muslim community, resulting in a small group of prominent Muslim Americans going to the White House Islamophobia with President Biden. Joining me now, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who was at that White House meeting.
And you're going to quickly realize that that meeting had nothing to do with holding Biden accountable. That meeting was a preface for the upcoming PR tour that the Muslim Americans about to do for Joe Biden. I want you guys to understand. Because now they're like, man, we speaking truth to power. We let Biden know. We let Biden know. But now they're going to wipe his ass right now. Let's watch.
General Ellison, thank you very much for coming back to the show. Bring us inside the meeting. What happened? What was said?
Well, a number of really eloquent, passionate leaders shared with the president how, as this war moves on, it is escalating anti-Muslim hate, anti-Jewish hate. It is not good for domestic relations. In fact, some of the folks from Chicago made it emphatically clear that 6-year-old Wadia murdered his mother, stabbed, because he was Palestinian and because his landlord thought that was what he should do. And we're seeing these tensions escalate. And the point is that there are domestic ramifications as this war moves on. So the request was made that this matter needs to be a ceasefire. And also there needs to be a permanent state for Palestinian people to live in. That is the way to undermine Hamas, to give the Palestinian people what they deserve and what they need.
You guys see how he sees his rhetoric undermining Hamas? When what I hear when someone say undermining Hamas, what they're saying is undermining Palestinian resistance. Come on, let's just go back to the normal system, the normal apartheid that we had. You know, the apartheid we got away with and people wasn't that upset about. That is what he's calling for. That is what my revolutionary mind hears. I know I'm an asshole. I know I got high standards. But what I hear from this guy is garbage. Let's continue.
Live in. That is the way to undermine Hamas, to give the Palestinian people what they deserve and what they need and what has been our policy for so long. But anti-Muslim hate is a real thing. We had people speak eloquently on this point, and to really drive home to the president the urgency. And the president was very empathetic. The president listened attentively.
Did he? Did he, you sellout motherfucker? So you guys see why he's here? You guys see the point of this? Biden was empathetic. Biden listened to us. Then Biden sold Israel a 2,000-pound bunker buster bomb. You guys see how these PMCs are here to fucking trick us? Actions over the words. If he listened to you and he was empathetic, he would have sold Israel a 2,000-pound bunker bomb designed to kill as many civilians as possible. Does that sound like someone who listened? But you gotta see, CJ, what this guy's gonna do, what all these Muslim leaders gonna do, they're about to go on a PR tour to tell people how much Biden listened to Muslim leaders. This is why we need to be more attentive and why we should support the Democrat Party. He just getting started. It gets worse. It gets way worse. Oh, but this is where the sheep herding begins. So when you have Muslim Americans, like we just showed you, explain how we was dehumanized, how Biden not speaking up for incubator babies being starved, not speaking up for journalists being murdered, for hospitals being bombed. Him not speaking up for that is a red line. So as Muslim Americans are saying this, Keith Ellison here tells the people to shut up because Biden is listening to us. This guy is one of the most disgusting people in the entire equation. And he does the same thing that the black professional managerial class do to us. That's why it makes me so angry. Because Muslim Americans are trying to peel away. And now you got the Muslim professional managerial class, the same way our black professional managerial class, trying to do everything they can to squash the revolutionary anger. Keith Ellison is the enemy. Sorry, I'm going to let it continue.
And to really drive home to the president the urgency. And the president was very empathetic. The president listened attentively. The president was very clear that he needed to watch how he talked about this to make sure that he's looking out for the interests of all Americans, including the Muslim community. But the message was left very clear. This war is obviously devastating and deadly for the people of Gaza. and it has implications in the United States for Islamophobia and anti-Semitism.
So then, Attorney General Ellison, since that meeting, how do you feel about the administration's response?
Well, I think everyone has to say that the ceasefire pause for humanitarian reasons was a welcome thing. It needs to be extended. We need to get about the business of stabilizing people in Gaza, of stopping the bloodshed, rebuilding, and that will allow the domestic politics of the United States to stabilize as well. At this point,
I want to say just real quick, you guys know I support the Palestinian resistance because that's the only way ultimately end the bloodshed. When these people say we need pauses, we need to go back to the status quo to end the bloodshed, that is not ending the bloodshed because 2022 was the most deadliest year in Palestinians in recent modern history. So bloodshed will continue unless we liberate the Palestinian people. Do we understand?
You know, you just never know what person's going to strike out in violence and hurt somebody who's Muslim or Jewish because they think that's the way to advance their position in that war in the Middle East. And again, as I use the word war, I use it advisedly. I think it's more of a massacre than a war. And that point was made to the president as well. Of course, everybody was real clear that the tragic attack on Israeli citizens on October 7th is completely unacceptable. Everyone condemned it, but the aftermath is something that is just catastrophic when you look at more than now 11,000 dead. We shared with the president that a lot of Americans have loved ones in Gaza. One personal friend of mine has a body count in her personal family unit of over 100 right now. So we try.
CJ, think about that.
100.
So I'm not passing judgment, but imagine condemning Hamas after Israel killed 100 of your family members. Because it will only take one for me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
100 family members? Nigga, I'll be the leader of Hamas. I demand leadership. Like, you understand how my mind, I wouldn't be the same person. Like 100 family members dead, and you guys want these people to turn the other cheek? Oh, come on, man. Why don't you guys just turn the other cheek and engage in nonviolent resistance, the same resistance that we ban, like BDS, for example? Who the fuck? And I've been calling these people out directly. Scott Ritter been calling these people out directly. Glenn Greenwald been calling these people out directly. Do you believe in give me liberty or give me death or not? Because who the fuck deserves and have the right to fight for liberty if not the Palestinian people, considering they got people that got hundreds of family members dead? If you don't believe that Palestinians have the right to do what the fuck they're doing in armed resistance, you're saying that nobody does. Period. CJ,
and that is what they're saying. That is what they're saying. And yeah, I must say this: it's pretty despicable that this guy who grew up as a Christian up until he was 19 years old is when he converted to the religion. So Christ. Now they're bringing these adult converts up here to represent, as he's speaking, for Muslims. It's absurd, Nick. It's absurd that, but it shows you what they think about the Muslim community, that they would even bring this clown to be the Muslim representative. Shows you the effort that they're really putting into this thing to reach out to Muslims. But go ahead.
I interviewed the activists that organized the Kansas City Free Palestine March in Kansas City. There's a reason why they're not talking to them. You know how easy it would be? Like, let me find one of these Muslim Americans who abandoned Biden. Let's talk to him. They don't want that to happen because you know how much facts and fire they will spit out rapidly. So, just for example, imagine me reading the tweet I read earlier, but imagine that guy on MSNBC saying this. Of him saying, we could never support someone who won't speak out against babies being starved, someone who denied the death count of our people. Like, that message would be so devastating. So instead, they fucking find a PMC sellout plugin who just converted not too long ago, apparently. It's fucking crazy. Let's continue, because I believe, if I remember right, in my head, I said the worst part is at the end. So let's see. I believe the worst part is at the end. It was pretty bad up to this point, but let's see.
Try to make that point abundantly clear.
Real quickly, Attorney General Ellison, a lot of the conversation here at home is about the political fallout for the president and for the administration in the upcoming presidential election, with many Muslim Americans going on the record saying they supported him in 2020 and they're definitely not going to support him in 2024. Do you believe that that is indeed the case? And can the White House, can the president win those people back?
And he even tells on himself. When he asked the question, he said, well, a lot of people over here, they're washed in bubble. We don't care about them babies being murdered. We don't care about them journalists being murdered. We worry about the political ramifications. We're not in a moral quandary. We're not up at late up night like we all are, going through mental health problems because we're seeing dead babies. We don't care about that shit. We're talking about the political ramifications. Explain to me the results that you guys are doing on behalf of the Democratic Party. That's how I view this. They won't view it this way, but I view this as them bringing him on, the most friendly Muslim they can have contact with, and they like, explain yourself. Explain how you guys gonna clean this shit up. That's what he asking them. That's how my broken brain translate this question. And you want to see how he answers? This part right here is why I decided to save the segment. Because as you have these Muslim Americans passionately speaking out about how Biden is dehumanizing them, organizing a movement to get people to leave the duopoly, guess what this PMC sellout motherfucker does? Undercut their entire message and movement.
Well, I believe that the sooner these hostilities, this violence ends, the sooner we can get back to the work of trying to repair this broken fence. I will tell my friends in the Muslim community that this is a binary race. We're going to have Biden or Trump as the president.
Binary race.
And Trump is the one who has said that he would expand the Muslim ban. He's the one who actually kicked the diplomatic presence of Palestinians out of the United States. He's the one who said he would let this current crisis go on unabated. He's the one who said he would not allow.
He's the one who will let this crisis go unabated. You mean like Biden's doing? Like, this is the PMC now pushing lesser to evilism on his own community.
But Nick, even with the list he's saying, is it the lesser of two? Because if he was talking to me in a Muslim, and I was part of the Muslim community, I would logically go, yeah, he's not worse than all of those dynamics. But I have the Trump card, pardon the pun. Genocide, sir. That trumps everything you're saying, sir. That trumps, like literally trumps. You got 17 million aces, nigga. I got a Trump card that trumps all of it. It is called genocide, sir.
I rewind the part where he started again. Like, this is pathetic. And this makes me upset because I'm proud of my Muslim brothers and sisters for making the step that I've been dreaming that my community would do the same. And you guys see, this will be the same thing. It happened many times before already. Don't get it twisted. But if there ever this super large black dim exit, and you already seen like professional managerial class people trying to stop the bleeding that's already occurring, you will see this on overdrive. And they already started with the Muslim community. And we just started, like, fam, these segments are going to get worse and worse as we get closer to the election. Imagine this segment in April, in summer. It's gonna get even more in the end, fam. They're just starting this new brand of liberal commentary we're gonna see, where they're gonna bring a Muslim PMC to wag their finger and drill lesser to evilism into Muslim brothers and sisters' head because they want to oppose genocide. This is disgusting, but I'll let it play a little bit more. We're almost
out of the United States. He's the one who said he would let this current
I go back a little bit. I will go back a little bit.
Unabated. He's the one to have Biden or Trump as the president, and Trump is the one who has said that he would expand the Muslim ban. He's the one who actually kicked the diplomatic presence of Palestinians out of the United States. He's the one who said he would let this current crisis go on unabated. He's the one who said he would not allow Gazan refugees to come into the United States. You know, the sad reality is that that Trump is catastrophic for the United States and the Muslim community. and that
what is catastrophic than what's going on right now? What's more catastrophic than that? What's more catastrophic than thousands of babies being killed, CJ? What's more catastrophic than Palestinians, their supporters, being financially retaliated against, being fired at their job at record rates? I have someone I know personally. I gotta respect their privacy. They are a doctor. They are supportive of RBN. They've been sharing our tweets. They've been speaking out against the Palestinian cause. They were just suspended because Stop Anti-Semitism Hate screenshotted one of his tweets and said that he was supporting Jewish genocide. Someone I know personally, a friend of RBN, is losing his job, losing his position he fought for years for because he opposed genocide. That's happening rapidly all over this country. People being financially canceled because of this.
That's because our government is flawed. That's because our government, Nick, this can only happen if an entity that's stronger than our government is running our government. You get what I'm saying? Like, absolutely, all these things are happening because Israel and the lobby, AIPAC, is putting pressure on these people to do these things. And there was Ali Velshi did a segment about AIPAC. I played it earlier before.
Yeah, I saw that too. I had a one on that too.
He broke down that whole shit, and I'll bring it up as a picture later in this segment. I do have some receipts where, and it's funny how when he talks about it, Nick, he's like, yeah, AIPAC gives money to everybody, and I'm like, nigga, why are you not zooming into the top 10 being Democrats? He purposely skips over that part, but go ahead, back to the segment right
here. We almost done. This is my last receipt, and I'll let you take over for a bit, CJ.
Yeah, I got a few receipts.
Let the video finish. You guys see I stopped it a few times because this is the part where I decided to cover this because it's just starting now. RBN is where you get shit first. I'm telling you guys, this messaging, this is the first segment of maybe 100 they're going to do over the next year where they're going to bring some Muslim guy on to explain why Trump is worse than genocide. It's worse than what's going on right now. Then you guys know how many people want to fuck me up financially? They can't because I don't work for anyone anymore. If I was still selling cars, I would have been fired a long time ago, fam.
Yeah, me too.
I already see people trying to dox me. I'm like, I don't work for motherfuckers. I work for my Now people trying to get my Twitter taken down. People trying to get my face. I already see people trying to dox me. It's hilarious. I'm like, man, thank God I have no fucking someone on my strings. I was fucked. You know what I mean? And that's go back to what I was saying earlier. There's people in the professional managerial class who means well, but we gotta be smart, working class Marxists who understand that these people have limits. Like, there's gonna be people who want to do shit to support Palestinians, but like, nigga, if I do, I will lose my job. I fought for this for 8 years to get here. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's continue. We only got a minute left, and I'll pass to you, CJ. I have, in terms of me, I have, I'm gonna cover, I may save that segment for later. I'm gonna cover the rape propaganda. What the other segment I had earlier? But anyway, I'll pass. Either way, my point is I'll pass you after.
It might be I'm sure some stories we overlap, just like this one. But go ahead.
Yeah, we may have overlapping stories too. I may say.
Yeah, I'm sure. This was one of them right here. This was one of them. Both of us was gonna do.
Yeah. So let's finish here, and I'll pass to you.
Trump is catastrophic for the United States and the Muslim community, and that Biden is at least pushing for humanitarian pauses, and he's aware that the expansion of this war has global implications that are very negative for the United States, and he understands the urgency of a Palestinian state. So
he is doing PR for Biden right now. That's the entire point of this. Biden was not for a pause. The pause was a Qatari broker deal. And we covered the story of how Biden didn't want any pause because he didn't want journalists to go in and document the war crimes of Israel. I can pull that receipt up in 5 seconds for you guys if you want. But you guys see how he's lying. He's lying to his own people. I know I wasn't going to stop it again, but this is disgusting. What he said here is a lie. Fuck Christ. I'll let finish.
Global implications that are very negative for the United States, and he understands the urgency of a Palestinian state. So,
no, he doesn't.
Some folks are saying that they're having to pick between something they're unhappy with and something that they really, really, really cannot accept. And that's a tough position for any voter to be in. But I'm trying to communicate to people in the Muslim community that Joe Biden is the best chance for people in Gaza and around the world right now.
So, bro, there's a genocide going on right now, CJ. People who look like you, well, I don't know, because you're obviously a late convert, but people who are Muslim, let me put it like that. People who are Muslim children are being killed right now. And you want to know what Keith Ellison's primary concern is? To talk to Muslim leaders on why they should support the president who supports the genocide of their children. Name me a bigger sellout. Name me a bigger betrayer of their own community. So if there's a genocide, imagine there's a genocide of black people going on, CJ. Like just a genocide. And then I'm like, I'm going to take it upon myself to make my number one goal to make sure my community still support the person doing it. That is Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison just said his number one priority is to make sure Biden still maintains his Muslim support. Who does that? How is that your first thought after seeing what's going on? But we pretty much done.
As difficult as that may be.
Minnesota Attorney General.
Yeah, we pretty much done. CJ, any last thoughts? And I'll pass to you at this point.
Yeah, I have some more receipts just to add to the same segment. Some more receipts. I'm sure you may have seen some of these, but I do want to insert, because it's part of abandoning Biden. I do want to insert the small little part. It's like 90 seconds of Lula saying how calling out Biden. It's too short to have it like a separate segment. So I still want to make sure we insert it. So let's insert it here. And then I have some more abandoned Biden receipts here. This is President Lula being clear. And he's saying the U.S. could have stopped the slaughter in Gaza weeks ago if they had wanted to. And this is an interview. Now, it is translated. So luckily, I did find a version, Nick, where it is translated. So we will see somebody interpret what he's saying. But I do want to make sure we cover this. So let's play it now. Lula.
You put forward that resolution that you just mentioned, calling for humanitarian pauses. The US, as you say, vetoed that resolution. It would have passed if it wasn't for the US. And then 29 days later, there was a very similar resolution, and the US allowed that one to pass by abstaining this time. By my calculations, in those 29 days, there were 7,600 additional deaths, 3,600.
Nick, 7,000 additional deaths between the times when ceasefire resolutions was put up. One was not supported and another one was supported, Nick. 7,000 deaths, Nick. This is why the Muslim community is abandoning you, sir. If you had did it the first time, you would still have a lot of these Arab Americans still willing to side-eye you, but still at least vote for you because of the threat, so-called threat of Trump. But because of that lap of judgment, because you had to be, I need to go full psychopath and show I'm down with this genocide, you allow 7,000 more people to die in that time frame. And now you're seeing the repercussions of it. And Lula was, go ahead, Nick. Lula was spot on. Man, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually covered this. I did a hotspot on this, on how Biden and by extension, liberals and progressives allowed 7,000 kids to die, and then set the ceasefire that was on the table before that happened. And you had Israeli hostages that was killed. And in my hotspot video, I explained how if Israel accepted this deal, they would have got Israeli hostages that was killed free. So they had to go back to a deal because Israel realized that their military operation, Hamas, was successful. They wasn't successful in painting the Al-Shifa hospital, all these infrastructure as Hamas. So them even taking a ceasefire was a victory for Hamas because they forced Israel at the table. That always was the position they was at. But what happened instead was Israel killed their hostages instead of freeing them when they had a chance. You have the war brewing on when they had a chance to stop it. So it was a massive blunder. And that's why many Israelis turned against Netanyahu as well. You have families of hostages that was killed that was upset. People protesting for that. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass it back to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's finish out this video and a couple more receipts here.
153 of them were children. What do you make of the US's action here?
Well, this is an answer, James, that sincerely I can't manage to understand. I can't manage to understand that a man as so important as President Biden, the president of the most important country of the planet, had not the sensitivity to shout out to stop that war. They have a lot of influence over Israel. They have a lot of influence, economic, financial, military influence, and political influence. So they could have stopped the war and sit around the negotiation table to talk. The word is less expensive than a weapon, and the word kills less than a rifle. So a war doesn't lead to anything. So to wait and kill 7,000 people, 15,000 people, 7,000 children, destroy 40,000 houses, destroy the hospital, even children inside the hospital, and then accept an agreement that they could have accepted before.
One of the
Yeah, he was. I mean, you can clearly see now. We have our criticisms of Lula, but these are the instances where Lula are proving he's leap years ahead of any politician in this on this soil, Nick. Like leap years. Go ahead. I'll bring up my next receipt, but go ahead.
Do you guys remember when Bernie Sanders and the progressives were trying to claim Lula as one of their own when he won his election? And I covered it at a time where all these social democrats, all these Bernie people, Bernie made a tweet. Bernie was like, me and Lula so close. You guys are miles apart. And I said it many times before. Lula makes Bernie Sanders like fucking Ronald Reagan. Like Lula was critical of the Ukraine war. Bernie wasn't. Lula calling for a ceasefire and was on the right side of history. Always was on the right side of history of Palestine. Bernie's not. Meanwhile, these same people will try to pretend that Lula was on their side. And then during the Ukraine war, a lot of people was propagandized by the Bernie media industrial complex. They really got to learn who Lula was, and they saw the Ukraine thing. Like, wait, what? I didn't know Lula was a Russian puppet. Like, no, you guys are jokes. Like the social democrats and the Bernie Sanders left are considered jokes among the global left community. We talking about the socialists in South America, the Southeastern communists, Southeastern Asian communists. Like these people in Africa, revolutionaries in Africa, they consider United States left a joke. And I didn't know that more until I started talking to more people international. Like I'll bring up like a left, I'll talk like Claudia, an indigenous Brazilian social. They're like, what left in America? They laugh at the idea that we even supported, bro. They're like, what? You guys think you're socialist? Anyway, go ahead, CJ, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, and then I know, and then there's a little short paragraph in this article here. This is from Al Jazeera, and it's titled, U.S. Muslims pledge to ditch Biden in 2024 over his stance on Israel-Gaza war, and that should say Israel-Palestinian civilian war, really. Just a couple of paragraphs I want to read here. This abandoned Biden 2024 conference is set against the backdrop of the upcoming 2024 presidential election and the decision to withdraw for support for Biden due to the unwillingness to call for a ceasefire and protect innocents in Palestine and Israel, the group told U.S. news outlets Axios in a statement. So that's what they said. Now let's scroll just to set the conversation. Now let's go down to this part, the part that I really want to talk about, which is this not Trump part here. And it says, Muslim Americans said they did not expect former President Donald Trump to treat their community any better if reelected, but saw denying Biden votes as their only means to shape U.S. policy. So they know damn well what they're doing. You can't use but Trump, you're not going to, that's not going to work with this community. They're saying, no, we understand that. And this is why I love this. This is why Black people need to take note of this. You have to be willing not to vote for this Democratic Party and say, yes, whatever consequences of you losing and Donald Trump getting in, I'm willing to take that in order to get you to change. You need to change. And if you want me to support, and that should be the way that anybody who is reluctantly supporting the Democratic Party. But go ahead, Nick.
You guys see how this basic political fact is obvious to everyone except the progressive left? Because this concept right here is exactly what I told Bernie supporters. The same thing I told social democrats before our very necessary breakup was, if you want to advocate for progressive policy, why will you vote for a neoliberal who is opposed to that? Even if you believe that Trump is worse, what we can do to maximize our negotiation power, if you believe in electoral politics, is that you don't vote for these people so you can have candidates who chase your vote. That's the way you maximize your power. You throw away all your political power immediately when you vote for people without any ask. So then they know that, oh, we don't have to do anything for them, so I'm going to chase the votes of the people I don't already have. And that's what Democrats did with suburban white women, with capitalists. They went over suburban capitalists. So they abandoned the left. They went pro-police state, 100% pro-imperialist. They are the unbelievably disgusting party we have now because of the progressive movement for years, just been giving their votes to them. The same way black people did. We got no black agenda. We get nothing as a community because black people just give away their vote. You know who don't just give away their vote? For example, the Asian community. So Democrats had to message toward them. They like, we got to have anti-Asian bills, anti-Asian hate bills. We got to message towards them. And that's the general way to build political power through the lens of the limited electoral politics. But then the Bernie left and the black professional managerial class pretend not to understand this, CJ. Oh, well, if we don't vote for Biden, then what? I remember Voss said, if we vote for Democrats, then Democrats be more likely to give into our demands because they'd be like thankful because we voted for them. That's like the serious argument that he made. And I was just left dumbfounded because I couldn't believe anyone could believe that. But anyway, CJ, go ahead and continue your statement.
Yeah, like I can't believe anybody is what you're saying, but all right, let's get to this next receipt that I have here. And this one is on YouTube. Yeah, let's go to the YouTube receipt here. Now, it's still in the same realm of abandoned Biden, but it's like this is another reason that Biden, that is the firing, let me put it this way. Let me say it this way. The firing of, or the canceling of the Mehdi Hasan show is another point that's adding fuel to the fire of Muslims wanting to abandon Biden. Like they're furious over the cancellation of the show. Now, you and I are like, this guy is milquetoast. But to them, it's at least a representative in media. And I did want to show you this receipt here. If you have a comment, Nick, just let me know. I did want to show this receipt. Go ahead.
Yeah, my preface for this, because I know we was on the same page. This is one of the segments I had. I knew.
Oh, wow. Okay, then let's do that.
We're on the same page because Mehdi Hasan, let me get my camera back on. I was running around the background. But Mehdi Hasan, it's garbage. We covered him many times. He took it upon himself to run defense for the establishment with the Twitter files leak. Do you guys remember? Yeah. And I live covered the debate he had with Matt Taibbi, because how many times do we cover like live debates? You know what I mean? I don't cover that often because it was so absurd. He was so desperate to defend the establishment. Yeah. He was doing it in the most disgusting ways possible. So I was like, you guys got to see this shit. That was the last time I really covered him. But Mehdi Hasan also took it upon himself to defend the Ukraine war and Nazis in Ukraine. That was like his number one thing. He defended NATO and the Ukrainian war, and he would do these segments making pseudo left-wing arguments on why we should support NATO, because he had Putin derangement syndrome, and he used a cultural imperial, like, well, look at Russia, they socially conservative. You know, we are socially conservative as well. But he said, this is why we got to oppose them. We got to fight against the Russian invasion against Ukraine, because that's what anti-imperialists would do. He was disgusting. He would hijack left language to explain why we should support NATO. What he also did, he also constantly ran propaganda against Bashar al-Assad. He constantly lies about Syria, constantly lies about Lebanon. He's one of the worst traitors because in a liberal sounding way, he would do pro-imperialist propaganda against his own community to justify U.S. occupation. The first thing I knew about Mehdi Hasan was his coverage on Syria, where he spread the bullshit about gas attacks. He was spreading propaganda to get al-Assad, all these people, to get U.S. war in Syria. So my point is, I'll pass to you, CJ, because this is my preface. Mehdi Hasan made a calculation that if he sold out blatantly on most important issues, that will allow him the green light to be progressive on some. And that will allow people to forget, because people will see a segment from Mehdi, and Mehdi will do a good job on maybe 1 out of 10 segments. He will talk about something legitimately anti-imperial and pro-worker, maybe like 1 out of 10 segments, but then the rest of it pro-Democrat garbage. So then people think that he's a progressive ally despite it because of this. That's why a lot of people are upset. But the calculation he made was, I'm gonna do propaganda for establishment, and that's gonna give me political clout. And he is devastated because it didn't work. Now, before we play this video, this was the interview that definitely got him fired. Definitely got him fired. And now he's relegated to be a side host on Ali Veshi once a week at best. But anyway, that's long. I won't get back to it. Mehdi Hasan is not in this story.
So I'm sure we're gonna have some overlapping receipts. So if I don't cover all your receipts,
no, I'll let you take the lead on this one. Yeah.
By all means, add them in. So I wanted to start with this before we get to him, the story of him being canceling, because this is part of the story. This is absolutely the interview that got him fired. That got him his walking paper. So let's watch. We're not even going to watch all of it before they start to get into a bickering match, but let's get into it right here. My simple preface is it felt like both of them expected this fight. I had that energy in the beginning of the interview, like both of them feel like they're trying to, like, they're expecting.
Oh, the funny thing, I don't think I've seen this actually. The funny thing is, I don't think I've actually seen this. I've seen the headline of this, but I think this is the first time I get to watch it, so this will be interesting.
Joining me now, Mark Regev, senior advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He was previously Israel's ambassador to the United Kingdom. Mark Regev, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Let's start with the tragic situation. Pleasure to have you on. Let's start with the tragic situation of the hostages. Hostage taking, a clear war crime by Hamas, and those hostages, of course, need to be released. Are we any closer to the release of any more hostages?
We surely hope so. You know, Hamas, as you've reported, has kidnapped some 240 people. Unfortunately, today we found the body near the Shifa hospital of one of the hostages, a woman from Kibbutz Be'eri. Her name is Yehudit Weiss. She was 65 years old, a mother of 5. And so she's no longer a hostage. She was dead. The information we have is when she was taken into captivity, when she was abducted by Hamas, she was alive. We've now found her body. It was one of the results of the military operation today. Of course, getting the hostages out remains one of the focal points of our military operation, and we believe that by expediting the military pressure on Hamas, we're actually getting closer to the release of hostages.
So was it a mistake in hindsight, and that's tragic news to hear about this poor woman, was it a mistake for Prime Minister Netanyahu, your boss, to have reportedly turned down a deal at the start of this conflict that would have seen Hamas free women, the elderly, kids, in exchange for a 5-day ceasefire? Isn't that why so many of the families of the hostages are angry with your government?
So this is where it starts. This is where they get on a different track. So that politeness is about to go out the window. Yeah, let's listen.
Sorry, Mehdi, that's just disinformation. There was not a real option for a deal before the ground operation. It was looked at seriously, but Hamas put nothing on the table that could be worked with. And so that's just not correct to say there was an option. We might have an option.
It was on the table before. That's a lot. Hopefully Mehdi calls him, because this is the first time I've seen it without clips. I've seen like a short clip of this. I've never seen it in full context. But what he says is a lie here, because the hostage deal that was brokered by Qatar was on the table for weeks before they accepted it. So that's a blatant lie. I'll allow it continue. I just had to fact check him just in case Mehdi doesn't, just in case. But let's continue.
We might have an option because the military pressure on Hamas is maybe making Hamas understand that if they want a temporary ceasefire, they need to release hostages. Without that, we're not going to have a temporary ceasefire. So we're hitting Hamas hard, and maybe the military pressure will force them to consider how they look at the hostages. Look, we can't expect them to release hostages because they're suddenly going to become humanitarians, right, Mehdi? They're obviously not. They're brutal, vicious terrorists. And
you see what I mean? Like this exchange in this moment, you can feel they're ready. They know, like, oh, this is about to go offline, right? This is about to get crazy. You can feel the intensity from both of them. Yeah. But let's see.
No one's suggesting hostages when they're they'll only release hostages when they're forced to do so.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the military pressure. We are nearly 6 weeks into this bombing campaign and ground invasion. The Gaza Health Ministry says Israel has killed more than 11,000 people in Gaza, including a record number of
Hamas
children.
controlled.
Let me finish my question.
But you can't say that. No, but you said you have to say the Hamas controlled Ministry of Health in Gaza.
I have to say what you asked me to say. More than 4,000 kids,
true.
They say,
that's true. You don't deny that.
That is true. That's what AIPAC demands of any reporter. That's in cable news. He has fact checking him live on air. Hey, sir, we donate a lot of money to the people on this freaking channel, Mehdi. It is true. You're supposed to say this. You hadn't get the script, sir? Yeah. So that's what he's checking here. Well, let's play. Let's play.
By that, Mehdi, you don't deny that it's the Hamas controlled.
I'm not
and
denying.
the health ministry is controlled by Hamas.
Let me finish my question.
But please tell the viewers the truth. That information is provided by Hamas.
Okay, and that information, we'll come back to that information, but you've got dead Gazans. The American government say maybe more than 11,000. You've got a record number of journalists killed, according to the CPJ, a record number of UN workers killed, according to the UN, and yet Hamas still exists. It's still capable of firing rockets into Israel, still has the hostages. You haven't found their big base under the Shifa hospital either. Your critics say that shows this war is a failure.
What do you think his response is going to be? Now, I must say, Mehdi Hasan is very skilled at getting under people's skin. He's very skilled in that. He wrote a book about it. He has a weird name about the book, but that's really what it's about. You get under the skin too. Right, you get under the skin of the other person. He calls this a debate strategy, but that's what he's doing here. And this is an unhinged guy. Let's listen to his answer to Mehdi here.
I would argue that's all incorrect, Mehdi. We're hitting Hamas hard and they're feeling the pain. We just discussed that a moment ago. Why they may be now considering seriously a hostage release. It's not because, as I said, they've become humanitarians. It's because they're under
it's the exact opposite
military pressure.
The exact opposite. I'm sorry, let me explain that. What he said here is incredible. It's the exact opposite. There was Palestinian children that was held in captivity since they was like the age of 6 or 7.
Yes.
They are released and they are teenagers now. How was they released, CJ? Because Israel was forced to a hostage deal, meaning what Hamas did was successful because they engaged in a military operation that forced Israel at the table. Hamas is not forced at the table because if there's no other situation, Israel would not free Palestinian prisoners. Those Israelis were freed until October 7th, and then Israel was forced to free hostages because they failed to prevent this military attack, and it got dismantled and embarrassed by Hamas. So I think you guys get it. I'll stop it there, but what he says there is the exact opposite. Like Hamas is not backed up; it's Israel that's backed up. That's why they were forced to negotiate. One of the reasons why Biden let the hostage deal on the table was because a lot of delusional Zionist liberals believe that Israel can go in, take care of Hamas real quick, and then they can wrap this war up because they delusional. Then Israel went in, Hamas beat the fuck out of them. So then they're like, oh shit, we got to start bombing hospitals and do long-range combat because we cannot defeat Hamas in real combat. So anyway, CJ, let's continue.
Is not one that we wanted, obviously. This war was forced upon Israel in the terrible attack of October 7th, and we are fighting back, and we will destroy Hamas. We'll dismantle their military machine, and we'll take apart their political control of Gaza. That's good for Israel for obvious reasons. We don't have to live in fear of terrorists crossing the border and killing our people, butchering our children in the middle of the night. But it's ultimately also good, and I hope you agree with me, it'll be good for the people of Gaza who deserve better than this terrible, authoritarian, extreme Hamas regime.
So
the people of Gaza are still alive. As I say, more than 11,000 people dead.
There you go.
And he said if Gaza was still alive. So we have thousands killed, but around like 90% of the residential areas in Gaza are destroyed forever. So, and not only do you have thousands killed, which will forever affect the people around them for the rest of their lives, the people who are wounded, they have permanent wounds that's going to handicap them for the rest of their life. There are people who no longer going to be able to work, be productive members for their society. Gaza will never be the same after this. And that's why he said it'd be good for the people of Gaza and they continue their genocide. That is about as crazy as it gets for anyone to say that. But that's just the average Israeli nowadays. Go ahead, CJ.
Reported dead, 4,000 children. I just want to pull up on the screen.
Hamas's numbers.
You say Hamas's numbers. I should point out, just pull up on the screen. In the last two major Gaza conflicts, 2009 and 2014, the Israeli military's death tolls matched Hamas's health ministry death toll. So, and the UN human rights groups all agree that those numbers are credible. But look, your wider point is true.
Can I challenge that? Will you allow me to challenge that, please? Can I just challenge that? I'd like to challenge that. I'll try to be as brief as you are, sir. Those numbers are provided by Hamas. There's no independent verification. And secondly, more importantly, you have no idea how many of them are Hamas terrorists, combatants, and how many are civilians. Hamas would have you believe that they're all civilians, that they're all children. And here we have to say something
based on your math. So I don't believe Israel's number because they lie about the amount of Hamas members killed. But what he's saying is you don't know how many civilians we killed because they may be members of Hamas. Okay, let's use the numbers that Israel provide. The number that Israel provides is that they killed around 1,000 to 2,000 Hamas members, which is not true. But let's go with it. That's out of 20,000 dead Palestinians. That's a civilian death rate of 95%, going by your numbers, sir. And that's the point that Mehdi made, where he dismantled his point, where he said, you keep saying that the health ministry is ran by Hamas, but Israel military numbers are similar than the Hamas ran health ministry. So what's the point even denying the numbers if their numbers is constantly similar? So even going on it based on Israel's numbers, you guys are killing civilians. You cannot blame Hamas health registry. Do you guys understand? And this Israeli propagandists are so dumb or so shameful, he don't even understand he was checkmated this bad, which is why Mehdi got a phone call and he was removed after this. Yeah. So let's continue.
Hamas, until now, we're destroying their military machine, and with that, we're eroding their control. But up until now, they've been in control of the Gaza Strip. And as a result, they control all the images coming out of Gaza. Have you seen one picture of a single dead Hamas terrorist in the fighting in Gaza? Not one. Is that by accident, or is that because Hamas can control the information?
You asked me a question and you
Gaza.
said you would be brief. I haven't, you're right, but I have seen lots of children with my own lying eyes being pulled from the rubble.
Because they're the pictures Hamas wants you to see. Exactly my point.
Okay, so let's say there are. What he's not getting, he thinks, this is where it's very telling, because what he's not getting is that produce the pictures. That doesn't negate these other pictures should not be happening. That's what he thinks. He thinks all I have to do is produce these pictures of Hamas dead bodies. Then that means it's okay that we have pictures of dead kids. It doesn't, sir. These people are psychopaths, Nick.
You're like, Hamas keeps showing you guys that civilians we killed. Yes. In every war, a very important part of it is controlling propaganda. And you know how historically they do that, CJ? Minimalizing the amount of civilians that are killed. That's a good way to prevent your side from losing the propaganda war. And historians even admit, I told you guys I'm a big history nerd. Obviously, one of the biggest mistakes that Nazis did was commit the Holocaust and commit so many atrocities, because that forced politically the hands of America and many other countries to get involved in the war. That they lost the propaganda war by committing so many atrocities. The same way that America lost the Vietnam War because they didn't manage propaganda correctly. They televised a war where they were committing atrocities. That's something you do if you want to engage in war crimes. So Israel is now complaining, this person is complaining that Hamas is better at controlling the flow of information for doing what? Simply showing the people that you guys killed. So how about not showing the people that you guys killed? I mean, how about not killing people in the first place, which Mehdi brings up? That's the one clip I actually saw in this segment where you're like, Hamas is making you guys see the pictures of people killed. And Mehdi's like, because they're dead. That's the one part of the segment I've seen. This part right here. But go ahead, CJ. Go back like 5 seconds so you guys see Mehdi. He had a good
full
response.
context.
Yeah, this is one part I actually did see.
8 seconds there, yeah.
You asked me a question and you said you would be brief. I haven't, you're right, but I have seen lots of children with my own lying eyes being pulled from the rubble.
Because they're the pictures Hamas wants you to see. Exactly
and also
my point,
because they're
Mehdi.
dead,
They're the
Mark.
pictures
Also
Hamas
but
wants.
there are also people
No,
that your government has killed. You accept that, right? You've killed children, or do you deny that?
No, I do not. I do not. I do not. First of all, you don't know how those people died, those children.
Oh, wow.
First of all, we don't want to see a single
do.
child killed.
Okay, here's my
don't want to see
question
a
for you,
single
Mark. You
child
say,
killed.
I agree with you. I agree with you. We shouldn't blindly believe anything Hamas says. But why should we believe
Correct.
what your government says either? Your military spokesman on Monday pointed to...
That's the question that got him fired, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, how this is, understand the Zionists, how dare you compare the animals called Palestinians to us? What do you mean Hamas did that? So why shouldn't believe Hamas? And then you have the audacity to equate believing us? We're Israel. How dare you question whether you should believe our numbers? Because again, Nick, I personally have not seen a cable news host say, why should we believe the numbers of Israel? I haven't seen that. If you have, let me know. But go ahead if you were going to chime in right here.
Yeah, I haven't seen either. We can continue.
Yeah, so here we go. Just back a few more seconds to let him answer here.
Died, those children.
Oh, wow.
First of all, we don't want to see a single
do.
child killed.
Okay, here's my
don't want to see
question
a
for you,
single
Mark. You
child
say,
killed.
I agree with you. I agree with you. We shouldn't blindly believe anything Hamas says. But why should we believe
Correct.
what your government says either? Your military spokesman on Monday pointed to an Arabic document in the basement of a Gaza hospital and claimed it was a
This is what
Guardian
got him
list
fired.
on which every terrorist writes his name. But that was false. It was just a calendar with the days of the week on it. Your colleague in the Prime Minister...
You know how much of an embarrassment this is, Nick? That he's pointing out to this guy? You don't think this guy was infuriated about how dare you point out that this was a calendar and that our propaganda is like clowns? This is what got him fired. I mean, if I had to guess, this is what got him fired. Of course, we're speculating, so.
Office, Ophir Gendelman posted behind-the-scenes footage from a Lebanese short film and claimed it was Palestinians in Gaza faking their own injuries. That tweet is still up a week later. That is endless disinformation from your government, is it not?
I disagree, and I think on the important issues...
I disagree.
I'll give you an example, Mick.
That's the best he got. I disagree.
What do you disagree? The sky is blue. I disagree. What? What? Okay, but let's see what he says.
Originally, we estimated... No, answer your question. Allow me to answer your question.
So, Nick, when Mehdi Hasan refuses to let him skip over this question, because Brett's just simply saying, I disagree. No. I just proved to you that was a calendar, sir, and this is a snippet from a movie, sir. Address that. That's when he gets really upset, because Nick, they know this shit is clown shit, bro. They know this is clown shit, but they figured we paid enough people to we should not be getting questioned over our clown shit. You know how much money we spent? That's how they look at this, Nick. We paid for you guys to be lapdogs, and this is not lapdog behavior.
Absolutely.
Issues. Look, I'll give you an example, Mehdi. Originally, we estimated... No, answer your question. Allow me to answer your question. I'm answering your question directly, if you'll allow me. We originally said in the atrocious Hamas attack on our people on October 7th, we had the number at 1,400 casualties. And now we've revised that down to 1,200 because we understood that we had overestimated. We made a mistake. There were actually bodies that were so badly burnt, we thought they were ours. In the end, apparently, they were Hamas terrorists. When we make a mistake, we admit it. Why does that give you permission? Why does that give you permission to accept Hamas's numbers? I don't understand.
I didn't ask about Hamas numbers. I said to you that your military...
No, but you were quoting to me before Hamas numbers, me.
This is called buying time, so the segment in, and I don't have to address the clownish shit you're trying to get me to address. This is what he's doing now. He's trying to buy, because he said, oh, we got a little bit of time, so I need to get this question. Well, you're not going to get me to answer this, address this in this little bit of time. It illustrates that Israel knows their propaganda is low level, but they figure we've paid enough people for all of you be playing along with this shit.
Yeah.
Mehdi, you were quoting to me Hamas's numbers.
Because the entire UN and the human rights community and the American intelligence community on Friday said they trust those numbers. But you're dodging my question, Mark.
I'm not sure that's true.
Why did your military spokesman on Monday point to a calendar in Arabic and say these are the names of terrorists on them? That's false. Can you accept that here and now?
I'm not aware of the incident.
Let's put up the image. We have the image. You have no
I can't read Arabic. It doesn't help me. I have no comment. I'm not familiar with the incident.
Does your spokesman read
hang on, I have a question, Mehdi. You're a journalist. Have you made a professional mistake ever? Not intentionally, but have you made a professional mistake?
Exactly, and I own up to it.
Have you made
He's not saying a mistake. The mistake of trying to pass the calendar off as some sort of Hamas fucking operation planning board.
This is so
like,
terrible. This is so terrible. He had to have known he was going to get fired after this. I can't think that you thought you was going to do this to this guy who's obviously highly influential. I've seen him on Face the Nation, on Meet the Press, on Fox News, on MS, everywhere. Like, let's let it finish out just right here.
I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. But there's a difference between making an honest mistake and between Hamas that deliberately exaggerates numbers to suit its propaganda purposes. There's a huge difference.
So it sounds like
it's like
so hold on. You said propaganda. Can we just deal with your colleague Ophir Gendelman's tweet? It's still up 7 days later. Why has it not come down? It's a Lebanese short film. We can put it on screen. It's not Palestinians faking their own injuries. Can we own up to that mistake and take that down? Is that not propaganda?
Once again, I understand that was also a mistake. And
so why is it still up 7 days later?
I'll speak to Ophir about it if you like. I'll speak to Ophir about it if you like. He's a friend of mine and a colleague. I quite like him. He's a good man. He's actually very effective. Why is he effective?
Well,
he speaks mother tongue level Arabic. I agree. He made a mistake, but let's be clear. It's very good that we have someone who can speak Arabic in the Arab networks directly to Arab people, so they can hear Israeli opinions directly.
I appreciate that.
Is amazing at that. He's very important.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I know you're short on time, much more short than me, so I'm going to keep going. Let's talk about war crimes. Human rights groups, as well as the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, have accused Hamas of committing war crimes, but they've also accused Israel of war crimes in Gaza too, which you blame on Hamas. So I have a simple question for you. If Hamas gunmen were hiding out in a school in Tel Aviv or an apartment block in Haifa, would you be okay with the Israeli Air Force dropping bombs on those buildings, leveling them, killing the innocent Israelis inside in order to get the Hamas gunmen? Would you do that?
But you're right in your question. Of course, Hamas hides behind students and children. That's their whole policy. That's why we've had the casualties we've had. Hamas deliberately embeds itself, as you said in your question, amongst civilians. The fact that they buried themselves under the Shifa hospital in Gaza City, not one hospital, but a whole series of hospitals. They took over and they turned them into military installations.
Would you bomb?
I am answering your question.
Would you bomb schools and houses in Israel if Hamas militants were believed to be under them and kill Israeli human shields in the process?
We don't deliberately kill anyone. That's not a fair question. What we are trying to do
you
is
just
eliminate
said you did.
Would you accidentally kill Israeli human shields? I'm asking a very simple question.
We wouldn't want to accidentally kill anyone. We wouldn't accidentally. No, we wouldn't accidentally want to kill anyone.
Understood.
But can I tell you, when the West fought ISIS, when the West fought ISIS in Fallujah and in Mosul, also there, ISIS used human shields. They actually used a hospital, I believe, in Mosul. You probably know this as well as I do.
I do. And what America did was wrong, I think,
and the West was fought. But I think it's actually, I think America did the right thing. You had to defeat these brutal terrorists.
Would you apply the tactics of Gaza?
But you're saying to me,
in Israel, it's a simple question.
We wouldn't allow them. We wouldn't allow them to take over a school in the first place. We'd send in special forces and we'd take out the terrorists.
I know you're over on. You're out of time.
I did answer your question. Why did you say I did not answer your question? You didn't answer. I didn't answer it the way. I didn't answer it in the way you wanted me to answer it. That's the problem. I didn't answer it the way you wanted me to answer it. We would send in special forces.
Like, I don't understand. What does he think he's accomplished here? But that, like, do they? I don't think, do they go back and say, man, that was a terrible interview? Like what? I don't get it, Nick. I don't get it. Let me just play. I don't get this. I don't get this.
Forces, and we would neutralize the terrorists. That's what we've done in the past. You know we've done it that way. Yes.
Last question for you. You've got ministers in your government. I have to ask this question. Amichai Eliyahu, who said Israel should consider dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza, which would kill over 2 million people. He's still in your government. Avi Dichter, another member of your government, went on TV and said this is Gaza Nakba 2023. And your boss, Benjamin Netanyahu, invoked Amalek, which was a biblical call for killing every man, woman, and child. Mark, do you understand why that cannot be heard as anything other than calls for genocide or ethnic cleansing around the world?
So will you allow me to answer?
Of course.
Number one, that minister was reprimanded by the Prime Minister, Eliyahu, and he was told very forthrightly he's suspended from the government. And
So, Nick, this sounds like when there's a racist police officer in a police department and he just calls somebody a Negro or shoots a black person or does something, and then they give him a reprimand. What does that do to the racist police officer? What does that do? How does that help? You give them a break. You give them a break for a couple of days, unpaid, and then bring the racist person back. How does that help?
if he makes any statements like that again, he's fired. On the Avi Dichter, I think I actually agree with what he said. The Nakba, the tragedy that was brought upon the Palestinians in 1947-48 was because of an extreme irresponsible leadership that wasn't willing to compromise. And Hamas is doing the same thing to Palestinians in Gaza. Terrible. And if they are creating a catastrophe, it's because of Hamas. And on the third point, Amalek was known in Jewish history, I'm sure you know this, that they attacked from behind.
These Zionists are so unhinged. They don't understand that they are describing a war crime. That's collective punishment. You can't take out your frustrations on the civilian population because, quote unquote, Hamas won't negotiate. That is literally what it means to engage in collective punishment. So I don't know what you think he's accomplishing there. And that's why my next statement I'm going to cover, a lot of Americans are turning against this war because I have no idea what you think he's accomplishing with this appearance here. But go ahead, CJ.
Let's just read a little bit about this. I like to attach articles now, even when I only have videos. So let's just read a little bit about what's happening to him, and then we can show some tweets. Just the reaction to this is kind of funny. Some of the reaction that we've seen, but everybody's kind of chimed in along with all the RBN members. MSNBC drops Mehdi Hasan's show as he speaks out for Palestinian rights. This is from truthout.org, and I mean, they're decent. They're not, radical or anything like that, but they're slightly better than a progressive Democrat, I guess you could say. But let's just read a little bit. MSNBC announced to staff on Thursday that the network is canceling Mehdi Hasan's weekend show, delivering a major demotion to one of the most prominent, outspoken, left-leaning news hosts on the major broadcast outlet on air. According to Semaphore, I think that's how you say it, which cited two sources familiar with the move, Hasan's show on the network and its streaming service, Peacock, has been canceled. Mehdi Hasan's show writer Adam Weinstein also confirmed the news on social media. Instead, Semaphore reporter Hasan was only appear on air as an analyst or when filling in for another host. The network is expanding host Aman Mohuddin's show to fill in the time slot. Hasan, who formerly worked for Al Jazeera English, The Intercept, has hosted the Mehdi Hasan show since 2023. He has gained a strong following as a candid and forthright host and interviewer. And clips of him interrogating and debating public figures, often right-wing ones, have frequently gone viral, with fans noting his powerful ability to persuade. And that is the article. Go ahead, Nick, if you were gonna.
Man, I hate how they're gonna use this situation to hype Mehdi up now. And that's why I like to remind people that he was garbage. And that's my direction I take. Now people are rehabilitating who Mehdi actually was. Like he's the one who spread propaganda against Bashar al-Assad and helped spread propaganda for the United States for their Syrian war. He's the one who's pro-NATO, who uses Putin derangement syndrome to advocate for war there. He attacked the Twitter files. He was a big advocate and pusher of Russiagate. So it sucks that people are trying to rehabilitate him. This is my tweet. I said Mehdi Hasan thought that defending Nazis in Ukraine and attacking the Twitter files gave him enough clout among the establishment to speak out against Israel without punishment. And that's exactly the devil's bargain that many progressives make. Because we debunk a lot of propaganda, especially like the Ukraine propaganda, using our critical thinking skills, using receipts that are available to everyone. But when I see someone who went to college, studied political theory, studied history, they are a part of the professional managerial class, and then they fall for it. They fall for the Ukraine war, for example. Don't believe it. I don't believe that. The people like Mehdi, they are smart enough to know what calculations to make. They pick what issues they're going to vote on. And as revolutionaries, we should absolutely not accept that behavior. People like the Vanguard, Crystal, and Kyle, they may say that's purity test, but we want to hold people to their principle and their values. That's what they call purity test. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, principle is purity.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Glenn about this. It's fine. If you don't mind, I'll read Glenn's tweet here.
Yeah, go ahead.
When Mehdi Hasan was removed from his show, along with MSNBC's two other pro-Palestinian hosts after October 7th, he didn't utter a word. Think about that. He didn't say anything after he was removed, like a good boy. And then after he got canceled, he didn't say anything for a few days and like, don't worry, guys, I'm going to be on Ali Vetsky's show every once in a while. And I said under his tweet, Mehdi Hasan has zero shame. Mehdi Hasan, what you should do, you should resign and protest that they censored you. They use far-right tactics to censor you and to censor accurate reporting over Israel-Palestine, let alone what happened to you. You should be protesting based on their coverage of Israel-Palestine. CJ, imagine if I did separate streams, all of a sudden I'll start repeating Israel propaganda, and then you go on stream, you start like everything saying like, I'm gonna do my own thing over here. Then I'm over here doing Yahoo like streams, and you just doing something. I'm gonna just ignore that. That what Mehdi Hasan doing. Brave. Can you imagine what you would do if I start doing pro police, like start demonizing Cop City protesters, and you doing stream not acknowledging it? That Mehdi Hasan, and people praise him like, Mehdi, you're so brave. Thank you. No, you're staying on the network that censored you. Let me continue going to tweet, and I'll pass it to you, CJ.
Yeah.
With Newsday's show was just canceled, he still remains silent. I get that Comcast contract was lucrative, but dignity is also nice. Go ahead, CJ.
And that your tweet was response to that. Now, he has subsequently responded, or at least tweeted out something, and this is one of them. So let's go to his tweet. This is Mehdi Hasan for himself, saying, thank you all for watching the Mehdi Hasan show for the past 3 years. Proud to have hosted one of the highest rated MSNBC shows on the weekend and one of the most viral shows on the network. Now, so even as he's being canned, just so he can stay on the plantation and eat the scraps, he's not really going hard. So he just want to point out, this is my ratings, and that's what he wants to point out.
That's actually
Go ahead.
Sorry, CJ, but I don't know if you know this, but I believe that's actually a tactical tweet in a way, because there was Israel apologists, including MSNBC watchers, meaning liberals, that was saying, oh no, MSNBC didn't censor him. They canceled him because he had poor ratings. Now, I don't know if it's true or not because I didn't look up MSNBC ratings, but I immediately called bullshit. Even if he had low ratings, why didn't you guys cancel him last year when he was covering the Ukraine war for you guys?
Right.
He had low ratings back then, right? He had a show for 3 years, so why you pick now? So even if that was true, I don't buy that. But secondly, based on what Mason is saying here, it's not true. That's why he tweets out, I'm proud to host one of the highest rated Go back to the other screen. I'm host.
My bad. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. Actually, no. I see what you did. I see what you did there. But you see how he points out how he had one of the highest rated shows. He doing that in response to the liberal MSNBC people defending him, saying that he got canned for low ratings. I actually didn't pick up on that before. That's a 3D chess move. But our critique of him being spineless still applies because he's still doing this so you don't rock the boat. There's a thread I could show you guys, but not that important. He had an exchange with Ali Vesci, I saw, where Ali Vesci like, don't worry, man, you're gonna be a guest on my show. And he like, well, thanks, brother. I appreciate your friendship. So he's not upset with the network. He's more than happy to be relegated as just a fucking once in a week guest in order to take the pay cut. What's brave about this? There's nothing brave about what he's doing. But truth out, and many other people praising him for it. But let's go ahead, CJ. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, and I just want to show a couple of more reaction. I showed you that. Oh, here's the other one. This is Margaret Kimberly. You know, we gotta throw in one of hers. This is one of her viral tweets on this. Mehdi Hasan learned the hard way. He sent for the state and their corporate media friends, but they dropped him like a hot potato. Anyway, that went kind of viral. George Galloway even chimed in. You need a heart of stone not to laugh, because I tell you all the time, Margaret Kimberly be having some funny ass
He's funny as fuck.
all
I'm
the
laughing
time.
hard.
And you see George Galloway.
You don't know, man. She's funny as hell, man.
Yeah,
you don't know. She's funny as hell
to me. I think there might be one more reaction. I showed you that one. This one.
Jamu Braca said. Jamu Braca said something similar to Mark Kimberly, just like you guys. Jamu Braca essentially said in a nutshell that these PMCs think that that you're gonna get along with you, that you're gonna have a good career until you step out of line what's important. And that's why no one should be thinking Mehdi is a victim. And there's another one. My tweet, Jimmy replied to it. I'll just read it because it's my tweet here. I said, this one I said when Mehdi Hasan thought defending Nazis, and Jimmy said, yeah, that's right. But anyway, go ahead, CJ. I'll let you read it. But that's when pretty much Jimmy Dore backing up what I was saying earlier about how Mehdi thought defending Nazis in Ukraine and attacking the Twitter files, thought that gave him enough clout among the establishment to speak out against Israel. That's funny. This shit was funny to me, man. I saw people sad. I'm like, why the fuck is a fucking funny story, bro? Fuck out of here.
All right. So what? The next sort of receipt, and actually, it kind of goes into another story, but it's connected. I kind of see all of this as the same. And that's this right here, Nick. I don't know if you read this. I posted this. And that's this article that said documents expose Israeli conspiracy to facilitate October 7th attack. And I did want to cover this, so let's just read a little bit of it because it's still in the same sort of topic of Israel and this October 7th. Now, October 7th.
I got one more quick story after this as well, but go ahead, CJ.
For sure. Yeah, this could be the last one that I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, documents expose. Oh, sorry. And this is written by Andre Damon. I've read a couple of his articles before, and it was 2 days ago that this article came out. But let's just read a little bit of it because it's very interesting. On Friday, the New York Times published a report establishing conclusively that Israel was fully informed in detail of plans by Hamas to attack its borders that were executed on October 7th. These revelations make clear that Israeli officials, knowing full well where and how Hamas would strike, made a deliberate decision to stand down in order to facilitate the attack. Now, why I wanted to cover this story first before we get to some other receipts on the basic story, and this is kind of one of the top stories that's been going on, even cable news is covering it, and that is Israel knew about the Hamas attack before October 7th. And this article takes a more radical perspective on it, and I thought it was very interesting, but let's continue. These revelations mean that the Israeli government allowed and abated the killing of their own citizens, and that the Israeli government is responsible for the deaths that took place that day. This criminal conspiracy was aimed at establishing a pretext for a long-planned genocide against the people of Gaza. Now, I'll pause here because I can't remember if it was you and me who were we talking to, if it was somebody else, but we started talking about this. I think it was Glenn Greenwald or Scott. We started sort of alluded to this, like, you know, where we don't have enough evidence to say that this was sort of a let it happen because we want the broader goal of committing genocide on Gaza, and we was like, we don't really have that information. But this article goes right into that sort of perspective. Nick, were you going to chime in? I can't tell if you were going to say something.
No, go ahead. I'm here, but go ahead. Go ahead, CJ.
All right. So let's continue to read. Moreover, it is impossible to believe that the United States was uninformed of Hamas plans under conditions where not only Israeli intelligence, this is a great point, because for the United States government to say they had no idea also about this, because let's eliminate Israeli intelligence bringing this up. Egypt brought this. Egypt is an ally. So let's continue. But also Egypt had advance warning of the attack. Everything points to a plot that involves Israel, the Biden administration, and likely British and European intelligence agencies. The Times published this report Monday as Israel launched a new wave of attacks on Gaza during a visit by Anthony Blinken. The presence of U.S. Secretary of State was meant not only to express the U.S. support for the renewed onslaught, but to manage the response to the exposure of this conspiracy. Wow. So that's a mouthful so far. Any comments so far, Nick, before I read a little bit more?
I covered this in my hotspot video, and wait until people realize the truth about what Israel knew regarding October 7th and how they choose to ignore it. But this is great reporting. CJ, I'll pass back to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, I do have a couple of other receipts before I stop here. Actually, let me go to that, and then I'm going to come back to this article, because these other receipts, one of which is a.
Do you mind if I interject? Actually, I have an idea. Do you mind if I interject?
Yeah, go ahead if you have something.
Because I talk about Jericho Wall. They mentioned here. I'll play this video just for the sake of the segment. I think it'll work well. Then I'll pass back to you. I'll briefly cover this. That's why I'll share this video for my general takes on this. Also give you guys some information. The Jericho Wall, Operation Jericho Wall. Let's watch this. So apparently, for people who haven't seen it, I'll post it on YouTube. But for people who haven't seen it yet, for the sake of the segment, let's check it out.
So apparently, Israel knew about a potential Hamas attack over a year ago. Netanyahu has some explaining to do. In a 40-page document codenamed Jericho Wall, it was outlined in great detail exactly how Hamas planned to launch their attack. Israeli military officials blew it off, though, because they believed that the plan was aspirational and they believed that Hamas could never actually pull it off. Hold up, let me get this straight. Israel will have us believe that Hamas is all-knowing, all-powerful, has control of all the hospitals, control of the UN, control of journalists, but they can't execute a simple military operation. I don't know. To me, it seems like Israel wanted this to happen so they can have an excuse to slaughter a bunch of Palestinian children. I need someone to explain to me why we would give Israel the benefit of the doubt at this point. This is an embarrassing revelation because the Israeli government is even losing their own settler colonial people after being faced with corruption trials, after facing mass protests last year. This was Benjamin Netanyahu's moment to lead the Israeli people on glorious conquest against the Palestinians, and his approval rating is 4%. Bro, George W. Bush Jr. had an approval rating over 85% after 9/11. If you're a leader, a disaster like this is supposed to help you. Now Israelis are about to learn that Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel knew about potential attack and did nothing. Now, just wait until Israelis learn about all the citizens that was killed by their own government on October 7th.
So I just want to interject that, CJ. I can pass back to you.
That was part of the presentation. That was actually the next video I was gonna go to. So that's perfect.
We be ahead of each other. We always
we're vibing today, Nick. We're vibing today.
Yeah.
That is literally the video. Look, that's the video I had prepped right here, but you played it already. So but any comment? You played your video, but and let me just read what you said here. Israel knew about the attack where we're going to happen. They were warned over a year ago. Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't joking when he said October 7th was their 9/11. Any more you were going to add before I read it or add another?
When he said that October 7th was Israel's 9/11, that was him accidentally telling the truth in some ways, because the same way that the United States government knew about 9/11 and used that to commit atrocities, that's what Israel's going to do. They knew about Operation Jericho Wall, and in the document was reviewed by the New York Times. It was translated. CJ, you know, in the document, they predicted exactly how Hamas would attack. They explained how they predict the exact pattern they would have done shell on. They even predicted that they may use alternative means of transportation, including paragliding in. Like in the report, they predicted everything. But Israel, their official claim is that they don't believe that Hamas had the potential to do that, which is bullshit. Now, I want you guys to think about this. Does these two narratives make sense together? Hamas is so powerful, they got control of Al-Shifa Hospital. They have the UN under their watch. They have Iran that is pretty much a proxy of them, that arms and sponsors them. That's the messaging that come out of Israel. They are the giant terrorist cell that do a great job controlling the flow of information. They have complex logistics systems, tunnel systems, the like that we never seen before. But they can't commit a military operation. You guys see how those two narratives don't make sense? This is the same thing they do in Russia with Putin. It's a pro-war tactic that our enemy is all-knowing, all-powerful. They can do stuff that our imagination can only come up with. Like the control of the UN, they control the journalists, they control hospitals. You guys see, same with Putin. Putin's all-knowing, all-powerful, super malicious. But at the same time, they're kind of a dumbass who can't do a military operation. Putin and Russia is so weak they can't defeat Ukraine. He made a political miscalculation. It's a constant propaganda technique of our enemy being all-knowing, all-powerful, but also weak. That's why even believing that Israel believed that Hamas can launch this is ridiculous. But I'll pass back to you for you. You can continue that. I covered this video. And once people know the truth about this, like Glenn says, I've seen some people go like the hardcore conspiratorial route. I don't think we need to do that. All we had to do is point out all the inconsistencies with the story. For example, they didn't tell us that 2/3 of the people that was killed was IDF, military-age people. You know what I mean? This is the same excuse Israel's used, right? Israel say that you don't know that they're killing Hamas or not because they're killing military-aged men. That's their claim. Now, that what Hamas says as well. Like, bro, they attacked a military facility and killed military people. That's why the civilian death count keeps decreasing, because they realized that a lot of people that they was targeting and going after was military. But anyway, go ahead, CJ. I know you want to share this. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's listen to a short segment about the same story.
But we begin with the New York Times reporting Israeli officials learned of Hamas's plan for the October 7th terror attack more than a year before it happened. According to the Times, Israel obtained a 40-page document outlining the group's strategy for the attack. It did not specify a date. Israeli intelligence officials reportedly dismissed the plan as aspirational. It's unclear if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saw the document himself. The Israeli military declined to comment on the New York Times report. Bilal Saab joins me now. He's a senior fellow and director of the Defense and Security Program at the Middle East Institute. Bilal, just first question: what do you make of this?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised this is breaking news. To be honest with you, I've, like many other scholars, I've known about this for some time. The issue was not really a problem of intelligence collection or intelligence analysis. This was more an intelligence failure when it came to imagination, frankly. The Israelis didn't believe that Hamas would pull off something so spectacular and so successful ultimately. The fact that it's being leaked now has a very interesting timing. I just don't want to come up with definitive conclusions right now, but the bottom line of what I want to share with you is that I think we've learned
of this interview, that's the most curious thing to me that I would love to know more. it's when he says it's interesting timing that this is coming out. I want to know, what do you mean by it's interesting timing? Do you have a theory on why this would be interesting timing, that maybe you're ahead of me on this, that I'm just haven't caught up on? Nick, do you have a theory on what he means by this is interesting timing?
There's Israelis that are upset about Netanyahu, and there are a lot of people that want him out. Oh, I'm not sure, man. I had no idea. I had no idea.
No, that could be one. That could be one. That it's just simply that this is the result of a leader who has a 4% approval rating, and they want him gone. So that could be a reason. But let's let it finish out what he says here. And I got another video of the actual person. So they actually interviewed the young lady who was one of the military analysts who was giving this information out. So I got the next video is of her.
And we've known about this for quite some time now. Now it's a matter of seeing what kind of a political backlash this is going to cause for the Israeli government.
So, Bilal, let me just get a little more clarity on that. When you said it was a failure of imagination, that reminds me of what used to be said about the mistakes that were made before the 9/11 attacks in America, that the intelligence officials couldn't imagine using planes as weapons. Is this in that same category? Because surely the Israelis knew that Hamas was trying consistently to do various different things. And a 40-page document seems pretty detailed. And according to the Times reporting, it seems to map pretty closely with what actually happened. So did they just think that Hamas couldn't pull it off? Or because it seems like the imagination had a lot of guidance with that document.
Well, I think that if you look at the kind of cooperation and...
Let me translate. He's saying, you didn't need that much fucking imagination. They had all the details. That's what the guy just said. It's like, you didn't need fucking imagination. All the details was right there. Continue here.
The coordination that was taking place, frankly, even if it were indirect between Hamas and the Israeli government, they never expected that Hamas would pull off something like this. And I like the parallel that you drew, John, but the more appropriate one in my mind is 1973, frankly. Mm-hmm. The fact that the Israelis had enough intelligence about what the Arabs were going to do, and the fact that they were going to attack on two fronts, but they still didn't believe that they would pull off something like this, especially after the crushing defeat of 1967. The puzzle that we had pre 9/11 was vastly imperfect, and so we still had a problem of intelligence. This is not a problem of intelligence or information, if you want to call it raw information from the Israelis. They had plenty of it. That puzzle was nearly perfect. It was a problem, once again, of analysis, of interpretation, of not believing that Hamas was going to pull off something like this.
Like a lot of people, Nick, in researching this topic, they feel like this is going to be this is it for Netanyahu. Like, he's not going to survive this October 7th. They feel like he knows he's not going to survive this October 7th. And a lot of the decisions he's making is of a person who understands they're not going to be surviving October 7th. Now, again, like I said, this video, I have another video here. This is the actual female officer who raised the concerns of a possible October 7th attack, and was like shoot away multiple times. This wasn't once. Multiple times she said she tried to tell them.
The temporary ceasefire has ended in Gaza. According to the Israeli military, they resumed combat operations moments after accusing Hamas of firing rockets at Israel. The IDF says it hit over 200 targets in the Gaza Strip on Friday. During the week-long ceasefire, Hamas released more than 100 hostages in exchange for 240 Palestinian prisoners. It's believed over 130 hostages remain in Gaza. CBS News' Lily Luciano begins our coverage from Tel Aviv.
Renewed airstrikes mark the end of the temporary ceasefire, but the fog of war isn't thick enough to cover the failures that led to the October 7th attacks. A lack of intelligence, however, wasn't the problem, says Margaret Vanstein.
I think that the main thing that failed is just
the fact that they didn't listen to us.
She's part of a unit of female soldiers who surveilled the Gaza side of the border. 6 months before the attack, she noticed and reported unusual activity.
We saw a lot of people that coming to the fence and checking the fence and trying to damage the fence and take parts of it.
And that wasn't normal.
It wasn't normal at all. It's unusual. And especially when it happens so regularly, like every day, every week, couple of times a day. They tested our reaction all the time. They came and then went near, far, like they played with us all the time.
She says her team reported the activity up the chain repeatedly.
They didn't take anything seriously. They always thought that Hamas is less powerful than what they actually are.
They underestimated Hamas and people like you.
And people like me, yes. That everything that I say isn't, I exaggerate things.
Why do you suppose that is?
I think it mostly because we are the simple soldiers.
You mean lower level?
Lower level, yes.
Among the first slaughtered by Hamas on October 7th were 15 of Margaret's friends, as she calls it, simple soldiers from her unit. And an intel analyst at another unit raised the alarm in July, according to the New York Times. The paper also reports more than a year before the attack, Israeli officials obtained a 40-page Hamas battle plan, the Israelis codenamed Jericho Wall, a plan the New York Times wrote Hamas followed with shocking precision, triggering fighting that restarted today after a week-long truce. Here in Sderot, just about a mile and a half east of the border with Gaza, we have been seeing many military vehicles. We're hearing the jets and also watching some of the smoke from those Israeli airstrikes as they hit Gaza. Just in this first day, the renewed air assault killed close to 200 people, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. Omar Harous.
All right, I'm going to stop right here because YouTube is real tricky with showing what's happening in Gaza. So I'm not going to play the rest of that, where because it goes in. But it covers the point that you saw the interview with one of the actual military analysts out there who was watching the wall, and said, I ran it up the chain of command multiple times, and she essentially said, because I'm one of the low-level soldiers, I wasn't really we weren't really taken seriously. So Israel knew about the October attack, and I don't know what's going to happen to Netanyahu, but he is not looking too good for him, Nick. And his corruption trial restarted recently, like today or yesterday. It just restarted, so he's on his way out.
Yeah, and I'm going to be covering this in our next segment. This is not necessarily good news for us. You know what I mean? Because you have Israelis that's calling for more blood. A lot of Israelis criticize Netanyahu for not doing more bombings. You know how they tell us that Hamas is uniquely evil because they want to kill all the Jews, even though they never say that. They want to kill all the Jews. They are bloodthirsty, and that's why they're uniquely evil. Meanwhile, on the other end, you have Israelis that call for more bombing. They're upset because they feel like Netanyahu is not doing a better job of taking out Hamas as a whole. They want more dead Palestinians. But let's start here because it'll be our last presentation. I want to make sure I definitely get it in for today. Because I am a PSYOP watcher. I will explain to you guys a PSYOP that's happening before most people acknowledge what's going on right now. Because I was talking about the PSYOP of anti-Semitism rising on college campuses and Jewish students being unsafe. I was covering that from weeks ago because I saw where that was leading, the suppression of our rights. And I'm glad a lot of people picked that fight up as well. But we covered that immediately. And one thing I'm seeing as well is them pressing the panic button because of this. We are seeing them share these stories of Hamas raping Israelis on October 7th. These stories, and I'm emphasizing this part, the stories of Hamas raping people on October 7th. Testimonies without evidence, all this stuff is popping up. You guys think it's popping up for no reason? This thing that happened weeks ago, and all of a sudden we getting all these new stories and testimonies. This is why. And this whole segment, I'm going to thoroughly annihilate the new psyop that we are seeing everywhere, that Hamas are some uniquely evil sex packs. This is a long-time propaganda technique where colonialists and war criminals, they rely on the sexual anxiety and the racism of white Americas to justify the genocide. And we're gonna go through a few posts here. You guys see exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of people talking about the age divide, CJ. Yeah, man, this age divide on the Israel-Hamas war is crazy. You want to know what people are not leaving out, especially liberals, because it's very inconvenient? While everyone focusing on the age divide on the Israel-Hamas war, everyone ignoring the racial divide. Where, CJ, white Americans at a tune of 70%, it's like, nigga, we down for the genocide, nigga. All more Palestinians dead. We want more Palestinians dead. That's white America, 70% of them. Meanwhile, black America and people of color are watching this shit in horror, CJ. So, yes, the age divide is a data point of reference, but why aren't we talking about the giant cultural divide? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me read this one first. They're not a long statement. That's why it's cool that we said it for the end. Most Americans support ceasefires in the Middle East and Ukraine wars. According to Post, this what it means to lose the narrative. So most Americans are to the left. 68% of Americans are to the left of Bernie Sanders on this issue. Meanwhile, in Congress, the thought of calling for these ceasefires is reprehensible. You see how the American people is against war? The American people against war in Ukraine. American people against war against Hamas. Do we get the end of war, CJ? What do we get? We get more war. But tell me more about how we are protecting a democracy, liberals. What democracy? If we was in a democracy, we wouldn't be in any wars. The American people are deeply anti-war. You had Americans that was pro-war at the beginning of this conflict. Remember, I did a segment around like maybe October 9th, October 10th, and I was like, dude, this is horrible, man. Guys, we got a lot of work to do. This shit is horrible. I read the first poll we saw with like 70% of Americans was down for genocide. Remember that poll I showed you guys like October 10th, around that time? It completely flipped. It's like, I'm like, holy shit. These polls, even Republicans, well, I would say maybe like the polls I saw like 30-40% Republicans. But remember, I take that number. Remember the 30% of Republicans who say they support defund the police? That's against the narrative. 30% of Republicans, we take any day, fam. And then you had 60% independents, majority of Democrats. These are numbers that we would take any motherfucking day. Do we get that through the lens of electoral politics? We do not, because we live in a capitalist dictatorship, which just so happens to be run by AIPAC. AIPAC is pledging $100 million this election cycle. They already broke records last election. You know how much they spent last election, fam? $17 million. And they're pledging $100 million.
Jeez.
They're pledging almost 5 times more. No, over 5 times more. Over 5 times more. You're going to have foreign interference in our election. This is what a capitalist dictatorship look like. But people will say communism and socialism, authority. You don't get democracy and socialism. Get the fuck out of here.
Nick,
you the guy democracy here?
Nick, if 17, did you say million? If 17 million gets you 412 votes for a resolution to classify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, what is an additional $83 million gonna? I'm trying to imagine how much more worse can our government get, but it's about to get about 5 times worse with this funding, Nick. That is insane.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
It's gonna get way worse. Glenn Greenwald talks about this shift in polling, and the reason why I'm showing you guys this first is because this is why they got to pull the rape propaganda out. Every time the war starts going south, all of a sudden they discover rape super soldier, CJ. Let me get this straight, fam. In Jericho Wall, in the analysis of October 7th military attack, it stressed that Hamas, they had everything timed. It was very precise. They had to meet certain checkpoints at certain times. It's a very precise military. You had to take hostages before more Apache helicopters come in. It took so much planning, so much precision to accomplish October 7th. But what they will have us believe, CJ, is that during this precise operation where every minute and every second matters, you have dozens of soldiers that was taking timeouts to randomly rape people. Does that make sense? How do they pull this operation off and they have soldiers distracted doing this random stuff they had no verification for? And I want to be 100% clear because I do want to be clear. I'm not saying no tragedies happen, but all the tragedies that I'm about to show to you guys, the news story coming out about testimonies have no evidence. I'm not saying nothing happened. It's war. Something happened. But the new shit they coming out right now, no evidence. It's based on a single testimony of an Israeli propagandist. No evidence to back it up. They got all these spy cameras, all this footage of October 7th, but no footage of what they say happened to this girl that I'm going to talk about in New York Post, where dozens of soldiers randomly raped her, and this guy got away with it somehow, survived, and to tell the story. Once again, if you use your critical thinking, because we don't believe what the government says, stuff starts to make no sense. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me cover this, because there's a reason why they point out this rape propaganda, fam. And this is what Glenn Greenwald says. The United States has long been the most pro-Israel country on earth. Congress and both parties, but also United States media, perhaps only Germany competes. Meanwhile, despite how pro-Israel a country is, our media and Congress, a new Gallup poll finds that Americans approve of Israel action in Gaza only 50 to 45%. Only 50, 45. And those numbers was around like 80-20 after October 7th. They had a massive fall off. And Glenn Greenwald brings up how younger Americans opposed it. You guys see this in numbers. And it's the boomers and Gen X that's all for this statistically, 2 out of 3. So 1 out of 3 are the base ones that watch RBN, I guess. We're not talking about you. But the older generation is all for this shit. And then the older millennial, younger Gen X, this is around you, CJ, they kind of torn. 50 approved, 54 disapproved. This is like the general number. And then among the youth, 2 out of 3, like, you guys are out of your goddamn mind supporting this damn genocide. Then 30% are Zionists, and people who still calling this off. But that's great numbers. But while everyone is talking about, this is the number I'm interested in. This number that piqued my interest. The number next to it. Because it explains everything. You notice how the difference in the youth is similar to the difference between the youth and the old. It's similar to the difference between white and black here. Because among the white community, 6 out of 10, 100% approve about what's going on. Meanwhile, among black Americans, over 6 out of 10, just above 6 out of 10, disapprove of this. Those numbers are flipped. The same way that around 67% of young people oppose the genocide, you had 64% of black people oppose the genocide. So once again, this is my personal thing I've been noticing. Why isn't that point emphasized, CJ? You notice how every media outlet will acknowledge that young people support ending the genocide? It's almost like they don't want to talk about the other line. Talk about how this is an instrument of white supremacy. This is why Biden is losing minority groups. They frame it as an age battle because you can get fight and battles of the generation going here. You can convince Gen X and boomers that the only reason that you're not wrong in opposing genocide is the dumb young people. No, I'm bringing this up because I'm showing you guys there's a very distinct cultural divide. This tendency where around 60 to 70% of white Americans just support the general foreign policy because this number always stay the same. Whatever war crime the United States is doing, polls will show the American people are against it. But you want to know who's carrying that poll? Latinos, black people. Then you dive into the poll. Then you're like, yeah, 60% of white Americans are down for the tragic shit that we're talking about right now. That's how it always is. So you guys see how Zionism is connected to white supremacy? You guys see how U.S. colonialism, U.S. foreign policy, U.S. imperialism is connected, and white people understand that they inherently benefit from it? Now, I would once again, my only guess would be the 30% of black people who approve of it or people who want to be part of the oppressors. These are the Negro imperialists we talk about. These are the Black congressional caucus. These are the Black boomers, the Black capitalist class who feel more connected to their class than they do with their people, than they do with struggle. So I can explain that, right? And meanwhile, the 30% of white people who disapprove are the white allies who watch RBN, right? You know what I mean? The Midwestern Marks, Jimmy Dore, for example. Meanwhile, the rest of general duopoly, white America is completely unhinged. And I say duopoly because liberals believe it's just only one of them. The liberals talking about the deplorable Trump supporters. Oh my God, look at these racist rednecks. The Trump supporters are so deplorable. White liberals are part of the approved group, fam. You guys understand that? White liberals are locking arms with the quote-unquote deplorable white conservatives to support genocide. It's a cultural thing here. But because of this twist, because of them losing the narrative in this drastic way, where more people call for a ceasefire, more people are critical of Israel than ever before, especially Black people, brown people, Latino people, you have the tried and true tactic being deployed. Horrific news stories of Hamas attacks in Israel surface, including rape of beautiful woman with the face of an angel. Surely not psychological manipulation there. So isn't it funny that this person who they described, because I read the entire account, this guy, he only survived, CJ, because he pulled dead Israeli bodies on him and smeared blood on himself. They describe in the story. That's how this person survived. So despite having dead people around him, going through this trauma of this person is able to perfectly describe what this woman looks like. He able to describe exactly what she says in this hectic moment, perfectly able to describe this exact scenario to the T. And also, during this very specific military operation that require very specific timing of the troops, I explained this earlier, this military operation, according to Jericho Wall and many others, it required precise movement of the Hamas troops. They need to be at certain places at certain checkpoints. That's how these operations works. So despite this, you have Hamas soldiers, according to random stories. That's why you got to see, they use words for a reason. Horrific news stories. Because that's exactly what they are. Stories from the Israeli people, the Israeli propagandists, that's saying with no evidence that Hamas launched the mass rape operations. And I'm going to show you guys this. This is a common, and there's a reason. I'm not skeptical of it for no fucking reason. I have studied this. I have studied war propaganda for a long time, even way before I got to RBN. You don't start RBN, you know what I mean? I've been covering it for a long time. This is a common tactic they use whenever they start losing. Because this is the story going around. The scope of Hamas' campaign of rape against Israeli women is revealed. Testimony after testimony. What do you mean testimony? So these are people just saying they saw stuff. There's no hard evidence produced. Nothing produced at all, which is similar to every story I'm about to share you. And now, after weeks that this happened, now they got a collection of evidence, CJ. So let me show you guys what they did before. Every enemy, isn't it interesting, CJ? We never fight respectable enemies anymore. They never, United States fighting this enemy. We got disagreements. They got a different opinion. We don't agree with the opinion, but we got to come to blows with another enemy. It's never that. It's always our enemies are the most unique evil of all time. Wasn't Putin the unique Nazi Hitler? Didn't they tell us that last year? Now it's Hamas. Before it was Gaddafi. Dealing with North Korea, dealing with Nicolas Maduro. You guys know how it's always a unique evil that we're fighting. They do this to get feminists and liberals on their side. This rape bullshit. So I'm going to say this straight up. We all know that horrible stuff happens in war. I'm not saying that nothing happened, period. But the way you end rape, CJ, the way you end rape in war is to end war, not engage in more war. You understand? If you want to end rape, if you want to protect women, you end war. You don't engage in more war. For example, the IDF is raping Palestinians as we speak. as we explained on our show, 95% of Palestinian prisoners report being victim of rape. Are they talking about that? No. Let me show you some example of them repeating the same propaganda over and over again. This is what I said in my tweet. I said the West followed the same pro-war playbook over and over again, and people just eat up. So in you had Gaddafi, you had in Libya, they had fucking super Viagra soldiers, apparently. Gaddafi supplied troops with Viagra to encourage mass rape. Man, Gaddafi must be fucking a unique evil. Who would do that? Who else would do that other than, oh my God, in Syria. We also have Syria where they claim that thousands of women, men, and children were raped in the Syria war. You also have this one here. The last war they wanted you to get on board with. Well, liberals claim that Russia was uniquely using rape as a tool, as a instrument of terror. So as someone who just covered the Ukraine war, I am seeing them repeat the same propaganda on that. You know how they said Putin uniquely weaponized rape? Now I'm saying Hamas uniquely weaponized rape. Isn't it interesting how all our enemies do that? But what did I tell you guys? Everything the West tell you is a projection. You want to know who is the biggest instrument of rape? The United States military. You guys understand the United States military? They rape so much that they can't even stop their soldiers from raping each other. That's how bad it is.
What?
The United States military can't even prevent their soldiers from raping each other, but they want people to believe that Hamas are unique sexual deviants. And remember, this go back to old white supremacy fears. The fear of sexual anxiety.
Yeah. They use that against black people too, Nick. They use that against black men all the time. This is why, what's the young man, Emmett Till? This is what was used against Emmett Till, the fear of him looking at a white woman or a white girl. It's the same sort of fear.
Black people, everyone. You guys understand these cultures, they just swap the same techniques, bro. Like every fucking time. The UK is currently saying that about Muslims. You know what I mean? The Swedish right saying about Muslims as well. Like these colonizers, they just exchange techniques. The Nazis treated the Jews based on how they study America and treated indigenous Americans. They don't teach you that in school. But they directly got their policy for Jews from based on American policy toward indigenous people. Now let me read this passage. I know you explained this before, CJ. This is a common trope. This is why I immediately am skeptical. Stanley examines how fascists plays on the sexual anxieties to advance their goals. They do so in two ways. One, fascists demonize sexual behavior that exists outside a very narrow band. Two, they falsely accuse members of out groups, usually immigrants and people of color, of sexual violence against women who belong to the more favored in group. So the second part applies to what we talk about more than the other one. But you guys see how every time the United States has an enemy, they want you to believe that they are uniquely sexually violent. And I am saying, generally, I'm telling you guys at the beginning, I'm saying this over and over for the dum-dums, that I am not saying that Hamas, I'm not saying Russia, I'm not saying no one did nothing. But the solution to sexual violence is peace, not war. What the people who complaining about sexual violence want is they want more war, CJ. They complaining about Russian soldiers raping people, but they want Ukrainian soldiers to engage in war so they can rape people. They want the United States to engage in war so United States soldiers can rape people instead. So let me get back to what I was showing you guys. Where the United States military is the biggest use of sexual violence. As I said before, the United States military, they rape so much, they can't even stop their soldiers from raping each other. There was a legendary Twitter thread, not Twitter thread, but Reddit. I don't read Reddit often, but this thread was legendary, fam. There was a legendary Reddit thread, CJ. I know you definitely didn't see it. Where the question, it was an Ask Reddit thread, and they asked, what do people do not know about the military? And the thread is only for people in the military to respond with funny facts about the military that people don't know. You want to know what the entirety of the fucking thread was? with a bunch of people saying, hey, you guys know that there's so much fucking rape in the military? No one knows about it. It was a thread, a comment after comment, thousands of likes of each post saying, a lot of people don't know. I was raped in the military. My friend was raped in the military. This person was raped in the military. The United States military has a gigantic rape problem, not only against people that they occupy, but against people in the fucking military. Tell me more about Hamas is a unique rape organization. Look at this. Now, let me pull this one. I'll go in a little bit out of order. Pull up. Here it is. Here's someone who was raped in the United States military. And because she was raped in the United States military, CJ, she was then retaliated against for the rest of her life. Because she wanted to speak out against the rape she suffered in the military. You can't do that. You have military higher-ups. You have media that pressure her. Her story's fucking crazy. She went through hell because she had the audacity of accusing her superiors and people in her army of raping her. And she brave and she fought it. And she told a story about how she was retaliated her entire life because she was raped in the military. Now, imagine how many women and other people, because men is often raped in the military. That was also explained in that Reddit thread. I may find it. I may do a segment on it one day. I will never forget it. Wow. It's a legendary thread, years old. Which is, what do you know? What do people not know about military? Hey, I was raped. My friend was raped. This person was raped. It's just anyone raping people. It's the fucking animals. And then when you get raped, if you report it, you're fucked. They retaliate against you and they ruin your life.
So what's the retaliation that they want to give to these so-called super Viagra soldiers? Like, what is the response? Like, okay, so you're pointing out that they're committing rapes. Now, what is your plan to fix it? It's to say what? We need more funding so we can go in and get the rapists? Is that what they're saying? They need some more military. They need some more weapons. They need to start castrating. They need like some anti-Viagra pills. What is the solution they're pushing besides war? It seems, because to me the solution tells me how serious you are about identifying the problem, if it's a real problem at that. But go ahead.
Dude, this is fucking crazy, man. Because I had to refresh my memory on this. It's a long story, but I'll just read this part. I don't want this to be too long. They talk about her military career first in the story. Then they say, then everything changed. Her date to the Marine Corps ball raped her. So she went to a Marine Corps ball where she was raped, and her battle buddy, a partner assigned by the military, reported the assault to the superiors. The rape set off a series of events, including physical hazing, sexual harassment, and 2 more rapes. Bruh. So she reported that she was raped. Then she got physically hazed, sexually harassed, and raped 2 more times. So then she was forced out of the military career she loved. And they do in the beginning article, they just paint how much she loved the military. I just scanned it here. The first part about, I love the military. I wouldn't want to be a military person for my entire life. She was raped, and then she was forced out of her career. And then they label her as having a personality disorder. And then they later explain how they forced her to go through all these therapies for people to listen to her story. She was retaliated against by her old people in her military. It's fucking crazy. And it is just one story of one person who's brave enough to come out. I want to speed this out. I don't want to be too long on this. But one person who came out. Imagine what happens to people who come out when they're raped in the U.S. military. Now I'll just read a few more headlines. I'm gonna fast forward this story just a little bit more. I'll just read a few more headlines, explain how the United States projects everything on our enemies. And there was a guy, I don't remember his name. I'm blank on his name. I apologize for that. A guy who was caught raping Iraqi children, and Trump pardoned him. You know, people think Trump is that time establishment. Trump pardoned war criminals who raped children and killed families in Iraq because he marketed as the woke mob canceling military soldiers. They did a big right-wing celebration. Trump pardoned military soldiers who the woke mob went after. And then I looked into it. I was curious, like, what do these people do? Fucking these people was war criminals of the highest order. That's just one on top of my head. One guy that Trump pardoned was a rapist. And you have this guy, U.S. soldier who raped and killed girl,
who was 14 years old, he said he didn't think of Iraqis as humans. The campaign of rape and brutalization of Iraq would take an entire live stream to do, fam. The amount of stories I heard that radicalized me against war of soldiers raping Iraqi children and women. Here's another headline. Rape in the United States military, America's dirty little secret. Look at this subheadline. As you pledge allegiance to the flag. A female soldier in Iraq is more likely to be attacked by a fellow soldier than killed by enemy fire. I want to repeat that. The United States military rape problem is so bad, a United States female soldier was more likely to be raped than to be killed by enemy fire. You gotta believe that Hamas is uniquely sexual demonic rapist. And then you had Muhammadiyah raping killings. I put 4 screenshots here because that's only what you're allowed. You can find story after story after incident after incident after story similar to this. The gang rape of a 14-year-old white girl here. I just picked 4 because they're Twitter limits. You only can post 4 images. But these stories are rampant. Now, sorry I went a little bit longer than I planned on here. So I quickly go through my last few receipts here, where the same people who was caught lying about beheaded babies are now sharing this story, CJ. And you guys don't think, you guys now understand why I'm skeptical? So here's Barry Weiss reporting on this story as this gospel. I saw this, she pretty much repeating the story. I saw this beautiful woman with 8 to 10 fighters beating and raping her. She was screaming, "Stop it. I'm going to die anyway from what you're doing. Just kill me." This guy in his trauma, and if you read the entire story, they tell you, you can read it to fact check me. They say the only way this guy survived was he put dead bodies on top of himself and smeared himself with blood so that the Hamas fighters would think he's dead. So this guy who got dead bodies on top of him, who is extremely traumatized, because you guys don't understand what happened when you go through these extreme traumatic incidents, right? Despite this, he knows exactly what she said to the T, the exact sentence. He knows exactly what she looked like, called her a beautiful woman. He knew exactly how many fighters and soldiers was there. And he said they were laughing, and the last one shot her in the head. Savages. So this is Barry Weiss, who's spreading the story, and the squirrel on Twitter, who made it their life mission to expose these people who lied about the Hamas beheading on babies. Gently remind everyone that Barry, remember when you spread the baby in the oven hoax, which was quickly debunked by Israel's own reporters and governments, and then you moved on and pretended that it never happened. She moved on, pretending she never spreaded Israeli propaganda. This is the kind of depraved, genocidal scumbag propagandist liar you are. This is her spreading the lie that Hamas threw babies in ovens. And Barry Weiss was there every step of the way to spread lies about what happened on October 7th. So my question is, when these people told this many lies before, why will you believe them on this? Why will you believe them on these stories that have no evidence? They have all this footage of what happened on October 7th. You know these screenings? They like, watch what happened on October 7th, but they have no footage of all these rapes that happened. They got these 10 soldiers beating the fuck out of the woman. No footage of none of this stuff that's going on. But anyway, let's move on here because there's another liar propagandist. This person spreading this lie of a Hamas hostage who had his leg burned by a motorcycle exhaust. So they claim this guy was tortured. They put his leg in under the exhaust of a motorcycle and burned his leg. Now, one thing I will tell you guys, someone who got experience with this, the more specific the story from the establishment is, more likely they're lying. Whenever they lie about a story, they bring up very, very super specific things to make it sound more credible. They will say 20 members of a unit captured this lady. She said, "Don't grab me." They said, "No, you go with me." They grabbed her in the back of the truck where they held her forcibly, grabbed her hair and said, "You never escape." They do this to make it sound specific, to make it sound more believable. So when they was doing this, Dan Cohen immediately called bullshit. Because you guys see how they extremely specific about how this kid was tortured? It's a propaganda technique. They do this all the time when they have no evidence. Just to fill in the blank, make it sound more believable. So Dan Cohen exposes this guy. Days after promoting the hoax that a Palestinian baby killed by Israel was a doll. So this guy was one of the people that lied that dead babies in Gaza was dolls. So he was already caught lying about that. So now he's caught lying about this as well. And Dan Cohen did an investigation where he said there was no evidence, and this guy's uncle, the brother's uncle who made a claim after meeting with top Israeli government officials, admitted that the boys were physically unharmed. So his family admitted that these kids was unharmed, but Israeli propagandists on Twitter are spreading torture fantasies. They are making up fantasies on how this guy was tortured. Let's make up a story. What would sound good? Oh, let's say his leg was under a motorcycle exhaust. You guys see how they just making up like almost like a sick, violent fantasies of these people, and then they make up a story and they spread it, and then people like Dan Cohen and Max Blumenthal debunks it, and then they don't get nearly the amount of coverage. That's another liar caught, and they do this to win over the feminists. They do this to win over the liberals to convince them to support their genocidal campaign. And I'll wrap it up here just for a second time. I was about to play the Jayapal segment, but we played it earlier where they brought Jayapal on there to explain, why aren't you condemning these rapes that we made up? Why aren't you condemning these rapes? Meanwhile, 95% of Palestinian prisoners report of sexual violence on them. Why wasn't there any question about Jayapal regarding the IDF soldiers who raped the Palestinian girl? Why is there none of these conversations happening? The IDF engaged in rape more than Hamas does, but there's no questions about that at all. So the premise of this segment, you guys saw Barry White caught out for lying. Everyone who was caught out for lying on Hamas beheaded babies. And I promise you, they're going to come out that these new fabricated stories, and they were even reporting them, stories, not evidence, not videos, stories, they're going to come out as lies and bullshit like they always do. So sorry, went a little bit long there, but I had to cover this. Keep your eye on this because they're going to continue to lie about this while also not bringing up the sexual violence that Palestinians went through. To wrap up on this, as I said earlier, if you want to end sexual violence against women, you end war. You don't engage in more war with the thought of ending sexual violence. That's what liberals believe. Let's go and engage in more war because Putin's soldiers are raping Ukrainian women. So let's fund the people who are raping the ethnic Russians in the Donbass. You guys see how that don't make any sense? So if you want to end sexual violence, end war. And the funny thing is, and this is what I would have added to the Jayapal video, but I added now. That is what Jayapal actually says. During the video, I have a lot of critiques of what she says, but the one thing Jayapal actually said with that knocked out of the park was she said, if you want to end these sexual violence, we got to end the war. So then after she said it, Andrea Mitchell or whoever the fuck was interviewing her, then got upset. She's like, why are you using both sidism? You're using both sidism. We talking about Hamas raping people. She said if you want to end the rapes, you end the wars. That's how you answer that question. But why are you both siding it, man? Of course we end the war, that would end the race, but you're not supposed to bring that up.
That's Dana Bash. Yeah, that's Dana Bash. I saw that interview, and
Dana Bash,
I'm gonna cover that tomorrow. So if you want to join, I know a schedule for the December is gonna be out of whack. Everybody just letting you know it's kind of weird this December. We got a lot. After we read the super chats, I forgot there is one other story I'm gonna cover. If you want to stay, if not, you don't have to stay. It's a short. It's like 5 minutes. Chris Hayes, I'm going to cover, but let's get to super chats and then I'll cover that.
I'll read super chats, and if you don't mind, let you cover that last story because
it's
I always fast for the stream, so it's like 2:45 over here. So I'm kind of.
I know you probably started. I know you probably started.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'll let you do that last segment on your own.
Yeah, I can do that. No problem by myself.
We got plenty to cover. We got plenty of guests that we line up for this week as well. So make sure you subscribe. If you enjoy this content, we upload every single day. We got a lot of great stuff coming. I got stuff I'm working on the pipeline. I don't want to say anything yet until I get stuff confirmed. I very much enjoyed the Palestinian resistance panel I did. I'm trying to put together more stuff with that. So once again, big shout out from Ashley. She's from Madison for Palestine. She helped me put that together. She's part of the Palestinian Community Network. Big shout out to her. She was on the panel as well. Thank you for helping me get these voice on. I want to spotlight as many Palestinians as possible. So I'm gonna try to put another panel together. I don't got exact time or date, but just know that coming down the pipeline. I read the super chats and I pass it to you, CJ. Thanks for the $5. Everton, the reason they think Trump has more power than Biden is because they know Democrats always vote in favor of Republican policies, saying the quiet part out loud. Absolutely. Well said, Everton. That's how Trump is so powerful, right? Because Democrats join him on this worst policies. That's a great point. You guys see I'm getting tired. Thank you for 99, John. When have liberals ever been anti-war except for Vietnam, when they was worried about the draft? Absolutely, John. Liberals are against war in hindsight. In hindsight, we can say, well, they do it now in the Ukraine war. In hindsight,
we
right?
say that
Anyway,
they are always against war in an abstract.
Yeah, you explain it best. I love how you explain it. It's amazing. Thank you for the 199, Ali Diaz. It should be hashtag abandon the duopoly. GOP is not better. It could be that because that's essentially their message. I think abandon Biden was a good choice because it was catchy. It trended. The last number I saw, I don't remember, but the last number I saw had like 50,000 tweets. It was like sometimes you see bullshit trends. These are like trends that Twitter push. Like Vosh was one of the people that like Twitter would push. He would trend, like Vosh would trend before I like muted the fucking trend. He would trend for like an entire day with like less than 5,000 tweets about him. Like it's like the fuck. Like there's like certain people that are boosted by the algorithm. But the abandon Biden hashtag had 50,000 tweets under it. It's not like it wasn't like a fake trend. If you're not on Twitter, you probably can confuse what I'm talking about. But if you're on Twitter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's like fake trends. Like the stuff that Twitter wants to trend, they had like a low number of tweets, but it would trend over like Gaza genocide. They got like Gaza genocide had like 100,000 tweets under it yesterday, but it wasn't trending in the top 25. How the fuck does that work? Meanwhile, you have duopoly shit, 2,000 tweets. You know, fucking Billy Jones trending. He got 2,000 tweets. Like, what the fuck is this?
Let me comment on this too. Because I'm all for abandon duopoly. So Allie, this is not at all
it's not critique. It's not critique.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's not at all directed for you, but people who are decolonized in the duopoly like you and I, Nick, we don't have to have these caveats. Like we can just go with abandon Biden. Okay, I can rock with that. Because we don't go automatic. Oh, what about Trump? We're decolonized, bro. My mind doesn't automatically go to that like an option. So don't take me on your decolonized ride. But I'm all for this hashtag. But I don't necessarily have to have it. Make sure I say something about Trump in order.
That shows how colonized the critique is about Biden. To your point, we don't even like the idea of voting for Trump. Not even considered. Is of course.
Yeah, it's not.
Do you know how liberals like remember Michael Rappaport? He recently said that voting for Trump is on the table. You guys see how these colonized mind Western chauvinists, it's always Democrat or Republican. It's always either I am quitting, I am leaving the Democratic Party, I'm voting Republican now. That's where the assumption comes from, CJ, because they are so imperially ingrained. Whenever someone say they're not voting for Biden, they assume they vote for the other party because that is what they would do. Anyway, I'll speed it up because I know you. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got one more segment, so I'll try to speed this up. Thank you for the 199, Amanda. Spread the word. Tell everyone to watch RBN. I appreciate it, Amanda. That's how we grow. You got to know the algorithm been kicking our ass recently. They do these. They always do these spills where they're like suppress it for a few weeks, then they let us go. Suppress it for a few weeks, let us go. It's always obvious when they do it. We're during one of those suppression periods right now. So
I was just about to say we're on a severe one right now. We're under a severe one right now.
Yeah, I know you know that as well, CJ. We go through this like every few months where we be like on fire, and all of a sudden the algorithm just start fucking us out of nowhere. We're gonna do one of those spells. We're gonna get out of it. We always do. It takes a little bit. Eventually the algorithm forgives us and allows us to go normal. But when we go through these algorithm crackdowns like we are right now, when you guys spread the word like Amanda is asking you guys to help us overcome that. So we rely on community. Our community is the only reason we got 40,000 subscribers. It's not because of the algorithm. You guys, how many comments you guys leave complaining that you guys don't get notifications? I get so many of those complaints. So the algorithm fuck us up. Sharing is the only way we get through it. 3 more super chats and I'll pass to you, CJ. Thank you for the 499. Oh yeah, damn it. I should say this as a fucking receipt. Damn, Janet's on top of it. This should have been part of my segment because there was a Israel military rabbi that approved rape as a military tactic. Damn, I fun with the ball on that one. I definitely should have included that in that segment. But anyway, I may cover that later because there was a guy who literally said that rape is that is what James talking about. Fuck, I'm mad. That would have been great.
Yeah.
Anyway,
came
I
in a little
suspect the
bit,
accusation
baby.
against Hamas is just projection. Absolutely. So at least you guys get the super chat. Sure, I should have put that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I should include that in my story. Anyway, thanks for super chat. I'm mad. Thanks for $2 DC. Just reported surveillance footage disappeared. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. We're gonna cover that more in detail later. That we can't do. There's like the October 7th security footage.
Yeah, disappeared.
Yeah, I gotta look more into it to get the segment ready. So we'll prepare one for you.
Sound like
Either
an
me or
Epstein
CJ.
episode. They did some Epstein shit. Go ahead.
Last one I passed.
Two from DC. Two from DC.
Yeah. D-Day equal rape of Normandy, Wikipedia article and all. Look up is it the rape of Nanking in China? That was done by Imperial Japan. That was one of the first massacres I heard about. Let me look at the name of the city. Am I getting it right? Let me look at the chat. Is it Nanking or Nanping? I think it's Nanking.
I don't. Let me see.
Yeah, let me Google it. The rape. Nanjing massacre. Sorry, the rape of Nanjing. I knew I was getting it wrong. I knew it. The rape of Nanjing, where Imperial Japan. I mean, they call it a rape for a reason. Though it's something that like really fucked me up. What? I'm literally getting different answers in the chat. What the hell? You guys are confusing me even more, man. What is it? I see Wikipedia said Nanjing. So I go with
No,
Nanjing.
I thought it was that one. Yeah, too. Yeah, I think it's that one.
Yeah, I think it's Nanjing. I see quite a few comments that are kind of different, but this is what I found. I just Google it. The Nanjing massacre, where you had all these Japanese soldiers that did mass rape, looting, and arson. And I'm just briefly bringing this up because Japan is our close ally, correct? The current ruling party that was led by Shinzo Abe, that had a close connection with Neera Tanden, Biden Democrat Party, their whole thing was they were far-right genocide denialists. So their whole message is that Japan should never apologize for their imperial conquest in Japan and China. And a lot of young people in Japan hate them because they're like the Republican Party of Japan. And a lot of young Japanese people are very apologetic about like the atomic not atomic bomb, but the invasion of China, the war crimes in Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, you have this old right-wing conservative party that they downplay the Nanjing massacre. They dismay the demilitarization of Japan. They are the people who believe that Imperial Japan should never stop. They believe that no apology should be made. And that's the ruling party right now that Biden helped double their military budget under the guise of fighting against China. I know I went on a little spill there, but there's a direct correlation between the current ruling party in Japan and the imperial crimes of the past. The same way that you know how Israel is taken over by far-right fascists, it's been like that in Japan for quite some time. And now Biden is arming those people to get ready to go to war with China. The people who commit these mass rapes. But they want to think Hamas is uniquely evil. Anyway, that's my last time. I don't know how relevant that was. I just feel like going off on that. CJ, I'll pass to you. I'll see you guys later this week. We work on some guests. I'll announce some stuff here soon. So
Yeah, we will announce. All right, Nick. We're just going to cover this short story with Chris Hayes. If you didn't see it, we're going back to Bidenomics for this last segment. And there's a couple of segments we'll have to push. Tucker Carlson speaks with Roseanne Barr. That'll be tomorrow. The debate between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis, that will be also tomorrow. So those two we were trying to get in today, but didn't have the time. So those will both be added tomorrow. But this third one, I'm going to squeeze in. This one here, this is Chris Hayes says, we're just confused when it comes to Bidenomics. And let's listen to the video. It's about less than 90 seconds. Let's listen.
In our current economic moment, economic data trends tend to make big news if they are bad, particularly inflation, for instance. And I've become convinced a huge part of the negative perception of this economy is that good economic news just doesn't make the same kind of splash. Some recent examples. Not only is the overall inflation rate down, but the core inflation rate, which is the thing the Fed is most focused on, it leaves out volatile food and energy prices, has been dropping since September of 2022. It is now at the lowest point in 2 years. How about gas prices, the so-called pain at the pump? You can see the price of regular gas just dropping like a stone since September. How about those insane GDP numbers from last quarter? Remember those? Those are now revised upwards to over 5%, which is the strongest growth in 2 years. Here's another thing you probably haven't heard about. There have been 4 national polls recently, all of which would show Joe Biden defeating Donald Trump. And no, he is by no means ahead by a large margin. They're all basically neck and neck, roughly in line with each other, showing a statistically tied race, which is the cause of tremendous and understandable concern. But it is worth noting that when polls come out showing Donald Trump beating Joe Biden, they get a lot of coverage. Have you noticed that? Probably hear about them. You didn't hear about those polls. It's the same dynamic at play here. We think it is worthwhile undertaking to cover the news in both directions.
So I'm going to play it again. I will start. So I'm going to play again and then kind of break down this nonsense. Let's play it.
In our current economic moment, economic data trends tend to make big news if they are bad, particularly inflation, for instance. And I've become convinced a huge part of the negative perception of this economy is that good economic news just doesn't make the same kind of splash.
Good economic news does not make the same kind of splash. So you would have to say, well, what is good? Define what is good economic news, and then you would have to define what is a splash. So, but let's let him speak on a little bit more, and then I'm going to comment more.
Some recent examples. Not only is the overall inflation rate down, but the core inflation rate, which is the thing the Fed is most focused on, it leaves out volatile food and energy prices, has been dropping since September of 2022. It is now at the lowest point in 2 years.
Now, good economic news he's describing as the price of something doubling, going from $10 to $20, and then the price coming down $2, you're not giving them credit for the $2 drop. That's the logic that he's saying here in this first example. Refusing or not acknowledging the fact that the price already doubled. So even a price dip of $2 just means the price went up $8. The price went up, didn't double. The price went up something like 80%. So I'm not sure they get it. And the other thing is the markers that corporations and the powers that be choose to determine a good or bad economy aren't things that workers would choose to determine a good or bad economy. Let's listen to the rest of this, and then I'll make my final comment.
How about gas prices, the so-called pain at the pump? You can see the price of regular gas just dropping like a stone since September.
Dropping like a stone since September. You notice that? It dropped like a stone since September. Pre-December to September, how much did it go up? So he's acting like, so this range of gas prices is between $3 and $4. He's pretending like a drop between $4 going down closer to $3 is good economic news that you should be praised for, without acknowledging that the fact that the range of the gas price being above $3 is the problem. So a fluctuation in an area that you can't afford means what? You know what I'm saying? What does that do? Doesn't do anything. But let's continue for the sake of time. I do have one more other receipt to show.
How about those insane GDP numbers from last quarter? Remember those? Those are now revised upward.
This is one of the most used numbers that literally doesn't say anything about the economy. It says something about the owners. This has nothing to do with regular workers. And most of the markers of what they determine a good economy has nothing to do with workers. It has to do with how well owners are doing. Stock market, GDP.
Upwards to over 5%, which is the strongest growth in 2 years. Here's another thing you probably haven't heard about. There have been 4 national polls recently, all of which would show Joe Biden defeating Donald Trump. And no, he is by no means ahead by a large margin. They're all basically neck and neck, roughly in line with each other, showing a statistically tied race, which is the cause of tremendous and understandable concern. But it is worth noting that when polls come out showing Donald Trump beating Joe Biden, they get a lot of coverage. Have you noticed that? Probably hear about them. You didn't hear about those polls. It's the same dynamic at play here. We think it is worthwhile undertaking to cover the news in both directions.
So progressive leaning
in our current economic
Chris
moment.
Hayes, the progressive guy on MSNBC, thinks we need to start giving credit, good and bad. So this is essentially what Kyle Kalinske did for Joe Biden, and what Crystal Ball argued in the debate with Bree. Remember the Kyle and Kalinske, aka Jay-Z and Beyonce debate versus Bree? Remember that? That's essentially, you're not giving them credit. But this is what Margaret Kimberly thinks of the segment. Y'all are just confused. You don't understand how good the economy really is. Your struggles are imaginary. And that's the point, a similar point that I'm making that Margaret makes here. One last receipt here, and that's an article. Article headline. This one, let's go to this Fox one. I have a bunch, but let's just choose this one. Democrats drop Bidenomics as some voters complains it's tone deaf. You're telling me the economy is good, but I can't pay my rent. You're telling me the economy is good, but I have to go from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day. So what good is the economy doing good if I'm not feeling it? But the professional managerial class is saying, regardless if you feel it, give them credit for the economy, which is completely absurd. But let's read a little bit about this. A Fox News poll from mid-November found 78% of voters rate the economy negatively, and the majority feel the worst isn't over. I don't need to play that coon right there, David Webb. Here we go. Oh, Democratic Party leaders are refusing to use the term Bidenomics in speeches and online as the 2024 presidential election closes in, according to Axios article on Sunday. Quote, House Democrats have rejected the White House months-long campaign to sell the term Bidenomics, the outlet reported. With many in House Democratic leadership stopped using the term months ago. Bidenomics, a term that President Biden has repeatedly used to tout his economic achievements during his presidency, has become unpopular within the Democratic Party, struggling to convince voters that life is better under Biden. Axios reported that Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and House Majority PAC are also avoiding using the term Bidenomic on social media and press releases, as polling indicates the tagline is ineffective. Quote, in a meeting this past summer to discuss economic messaging strategies, in quote, the report continues, quote, House Democrats decided to stick with people over politics rather than Bidenomics, end quote, one senior Democratic leadership aide told Axios. Voters, not just Democratic leadership, also feel negatively about, Bidenomics, with Democratic sources telling Axios that the term was seen as tone deaf to voters still struggling economically, and also invoked a president with lackluster polling numbers. So the polling, this is how tone deaf they are. So you need polling to tell you that this message was tone deaf. people are struggling, wages are being suppressed still. We're still at it. I can't still believe the national rate is at $7 and some odd cent. That's insane because I'm in California and I think we're at $14 or maybe $15 an hour, and that's $10 short than what we need as a minimum wage in California. But I digress. Let me get back. A Fox News poll from mid-November found 78% of voters rate the economy negatively, and majority feel the worst isn't over. Inflation was the top concern with the majority of those surveyed, and only 29% of voters approved of Biden's handling of the issue, while 69% said they disapproved. That's Bidenomics, and I'm going to end it. I don't need to read the rest of this. It kind of goes off. I wanted to just kind of have a counterpoint to what Chris had said in his segment, and I'm going to end it right there, right now. But actually, no, I do have some final words on this. They tried the Bidenomics. And the fact that Bidenomics has failed, the fact that 91 charges have failed, the fact that he is bleeding support over the Palestinian genocide issue and their stance is spelling defeat for Biden. Like they're depending on this being the election being 10 months away. They're really depending on that 11 months away. But I'm telling you, there's too many areas that he is so underwater. He's not going to be able to recover to win the election. If Joe Biden stays in the race, Joe Biden will lose. If Joe Biden is the nominee, Joe Biden will lose the election. I'm saying that now. Most of us have been saying that already. All right, that's my final word. I'm going to get out of here. I got to get on the road. Here's another member. The Second Sand Queen gifted one membership. That's one gifted membership. Here's 5 more gifted by Delaxa. I think that's how you say it. 5 memberships. So that's a total of 6 gifted memberships. And here, a total of 11 gifted memberships in one stream. This is Zombie in the Air. Thank you for 5. Wow, 5. And Sean bought another 5 months of membership. Biden is done for, and that is a perfect super chat to end with. There's not going to be a closeout video. I got to get on the road right away, but thank you for watching today's episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'll be back with some of those stories were not able to get to, like the Gavin Newsom debate with what's his name with Ron DeSantis, and also the interview that Roseanne Barr did with Tucker Carlson. I also want to cover that interview, along with the Florida Democrats abandoned democracy. That's another big story we was not able to get to today. But thank you for watching. Hit that like button on your way out.